Put your money on red and you've a fair chance of winning on the Hungarian roulette wheel. But you'd be out of pocket if you reckoned on red 1 doing the business in qualifying. Rubens Barrichello outshone his world champion teammate to give himself pole position, and in defeat, Michael Schumacher was brutally honest.
He was doing a good job and I couldn't match it.
Indeed, even young Ralph came close to getting the better of his brother, Schumacher Jr. finishing a second ahead of Williams teammate Juan Pablo Montoya. From joy to utter despair as McLaren take 10th and 11th positions, easily their worst qualifying performance of the year.
Feels like the first time I've driven this car. So alien, the response I'm getting.
On a brighter note, a sparkling display from Giancarlo Fisichella puts Jordan on the 3rd row, alongside Jarno Trulli, who goes some way to silencing the Button Brigade as the Brit trails in 9th. Brightest smile of the day belongs to Minardi sub Anthony Davidson, who succeeds in qualifying for his first ever Grand Prix, although it took some effort.
Yeah, I'll be able to sleep for sure. Naked.
Let's hope he got some sleep, because he's in with the big boys this afternoon. One of them, a 5-time world champion who's not used to starting from second. You wouldn't like him when he's angry. The Hungaroring was the venue for the first Grand Prix win in the career of the last British F1 world champion. His name was Damon Hill, and I'm delighted to say that Damon, along with Jeremy Hart, joins us this afternoon. Now then, Damon, Hungary also the venue for the Grand Prix debut of another British potential world champion, do you think, Anthony Davidson?
Well, it's well too early to say that, but he did a very good job to get his car in the race, and also only about 4/10 away from Mark Webber, who's been driving the car all year, so a fine performance.
Jeremy, I know you want to speak, you always want to speak, but we actually have some hot news coming our way, live now, from Peter Windsor, who I understand, Peter, that there's been a development of some note concerning Jordan.
There has indeed, Matt, and who better to talk to about it than Eddie Jordan himself. Eddie, let's hear it from in your own words. Tell us about this deal with Ford.
Well, I really wanted to tell John yesterday, because I know he's been teasing me for some months about what engine we're going to use, and I think he had an inkling, but he just didn't come quite out with it. Last night it was really quite a long, exhaustive night, because there were documents toing and froing here, and it got signed, the contract that I've been waiting for some time, and that is that Ford and Jordan will be together, and what the race and the cars that you will see here will be Jordan Fords this time next year, and for a 3-year contract. It's fabulously exciting for us. I think it's absolutely brilliant for Formula One as well. To have Ford back in the fray is quite an amazing thing at the moment.
Now, just on the immediate future, what specific engines would you be using next year? The 2003, the 2004?
Well, I'm not being
the 2002 or 3.
Yeah, thanks. I think what's happened is that, you know, this all got done very quickly. What the important thing in this aspect is that Ford and Jordan have contracted with Cosworth. We will have our own dedicated people inside Cosworth. They will be exclusive to us. What they finally come up with and the design and the structure of the engine, Gary will be there tomorrow to start up those conversations. What we find out, I'll be very happy to tell you as soon as I know. But right at this moment, there are a number of opportunities, and as soon as we know what those opportunities are, we'll tell you.
Now, you're still officially a Honda contracted team, so tell us about that. And beyond that, what part of Ford are you working with? Are we talking Ford of America now, or are we talking Ford of Europe? Where does it start? Where does it end?
Well, initially, of course, a lot of the ideas and the structure was with Martin Leach, the new president of Ford of Europe, and that's how the initial conversation started. When the contract came through, it was signed by Richard Parry-Jones, who is on the global side of things, but primarily I would imagine that when Ford make the decision as to how they want to structure the marketing idea, but certainly from the initiative of the business-to-business relationship and some of the key aspects of what really made this appealing to everyone, I would imagine that I would be initially working with Martin Leach in Ford of Europe. On the Honda side, I just may say that we did have a contract for next year with Honda, and they were absolutely sensational. When I asked them, could I please have a release that I thought that, you know, this was a great opportunity for Jordan's longevity, and they did, without any problem, releases from our contract and made this deal possible to happen as a result. So full marks to Honda on this affair.
You used the term business to business there. Is that a paraphrase for a Formula One deal where everybody pays or nobody pays? How's it actually going to work in terms of finance?
This is not intended to be a ploy on any wording or trickery or anything like that. This is a situation where I believe that just like you have to measure and be a prudent operator in terms of running your business, I want to stay in business, and this allows me to stay in business because the Ford operation is just quite sensational. When I say business to business, Jordan understands that there needs to be different than just putting stickers on a car. There needs to be a return for the shareholders, there needs to be added value, there needs to be a different structure and a different outlook, I think, on how any sport looks upon itself. This business of just putting a sticker on a car and hoping to cash in the checks and go racing, I think that may have been okay in years gone by, but now shareholders want to see a return on their investment, and this is an investment. It gives a good marketing exploitation, but it also needs to derive real value.
But in Formula One, everyone talks about money, so let's talk about it.
Why not?
Is this costing Jordan money?
No, absolutely not. As I made it very clear, it was a partnership with Ford at the beginning, including a lot of new ideas, which will be unfolded. As you notice, we haven't done a press conference as such. We're giving you, if you like, the benefit of the news that just came out last night. When we get all our feet together and get our stories as to how the basic unfolding of the structure, I think you'll find it very exciting and also very new in its concept.
So the car on the team is Jordan Ford. Ford on the cam covers of the engine, Ford on the engine cover of the car?
The engine, let me be very clear, the car that you see racing here next year will be a Jordan Ford, and in the back of it will be an engine which will be called Ford Cosworth RS1, which is next year's engine. And the RS1 is in keeping with perhaps the new marketing and cars that are being developed and produced at the moment by Ford. So that's in keeping with that structure. So it's aligned to that, and the relationship with Cosworth is very clearly a partnership between Jordan and Ford in that respect.
Ford is ultimately an American company. Are we looking long-term at perhaps an American driver, more American involvement, and what is the future, therefore, of Takuma Sato?
Well, if I can answer them all maybe in one hit, we have a contract with both our drivers for next year. Really, because the urgency in making all of this happen and giving our engineers a chance to develop a car for the Ford engine next year. With Cosworth and those engineers, of course, that's important. Drivers was a secondary issue. Now, normally, I don't want to say it that it is secondary, but it just has happened so quickly. I will address the driver situation, but I don't need to at the moment. Both drivers are contracted to us, and they're very comfortable and very excited because it's an exciting time for Jordan. We started off in '91 with a Cosworth engine, and I always wanted to be with a Ford engine in my life, and finally we have one. And you know, the cars next year with the oval, as you asked me already, for John Watson's benefit, of course, good old John. Yes, there will be an oval on it. It will be Ford, and the car will be a Jordan Ford, and the engine will be a Ford Cosworth.
Well, great news, congratulations. And I guess Niki Lauda was the first to congratulate you as well, was he?
I think that's probably a bit below the belt. Come on, Peter, don't get into that one.
Thank you very much, Eddie.
Thank you.
Peter, well done. Congratulations on starting the show off with an exclusive. And if we can't go below the belt with Eddie, let's go below the belt with Damon and Jeremy. Damon, what was that reference to Niki Lauda all about?
Well, Niki Lauda is supposed to be the head of motorsport for Ford, and he said all along that there is no other Ford deal going anywhere else other than Jaguar, and it would make sense if Ford have spent many millions of pounds investing in the Jaguar team, that they keep their eggs in one basket. So, I mean, there's a lot of spin there with what Eddie's just said. There's no question about that. But then he has got, I mean, if you wanted to have a wartime leader, Eddie's the man you'd have, because he managed to turn defeat into victory. You know, he actually has lost the Honda engine deal to BAR, and he's managed to turn this around into a victory for having secured a Ford deal from an unlikely situation. He hasn't got the complete backing of Ford from America. He made that clear. He's been speaking to the European head of operations. But yet somehow he manages to turn it around and make it look like he's secured himself an engine deal, which he has done.
OK, it's just arrived at your desk, so to speak, Jeremy, but what has he got out of this? I mean, as Damon says, he's going to lose Honda, obviously, but he's now got a Ford engine. How good is that, in simple terms, when he starts next season?
Well, the story is that he's going to run an engine that is not the absolute top spec. Jaguar will still get the top spec Cosworth engine. But there's a very important piece of background to this as to partly why this deal has been done, is that Deutsche Post, who's one of the big sponsors at Jordan, are likely to do a multi-million pound deal with Ford to supply trucks for their deliveries all over Europe. So there's a lot more to this than meets the eye than just Ford, out of the goodness of their hearts, have come along and decided to supply Eddie Jordan with engines for next year and even have the name on the side. There's far more to it than that. And the other side is that DHL, who is another sponsor at Jordan, also need trucks. So there's a lot more to it, and a lot of the money in these deals is made way away from the tracks. It's made in all the dealings that go on in the business world, not just racing.
OK, well, we've said ourselves talking. No doubt the rest of the pit lane is talking, and we hope to be talking to Niki Lauda about this issue a little later in the programme. In the meantime, for more than a third of qualifying yesterday, the teams called one another's bluff as each refused to be the first to lay down the rubber that would be so useful to everybody else. Minardi's poker face was the first to break in the shape of Anthony Davidson, and eventually the fight for pole broke out in heavy traffic, as described by John Watson and Ben Edwards.
It's because there's no point in getting involved in a real dice. You always know it's a tough battle to overtake on this track, but it can provide some exciting racing, and the air temperature coming up almost up to 30 degrees Celsius.
Yes, I mean, it looks absolutely glorious. I mean, you couldn't have a better day in Hungary to have a Grand Prix, and humidity, that's the key here because of all the mid-European rain that's been falling. Budapest is actually just about surviving. There is water on some of the roads that run parallel to the Danube, but it hasn't crept over into the city as it's done in other cities. Nonetheless, 77 laps around here, Ben, exceptionally tough, and none more than for Formula One debutant Brit Anthony Davidson, who's done a very, very impressive job. I think everybody here in Hungary is very surprised about how good a job Anthony has done. He is 20th of 20.
And more than a few grimaces after that lot. Here's what the top six had to say.
Yeah, it was a good lap, and I've learned so much since since driving Formula One, and I'm enjoying forevermore. And it's been a good work since this morning with the car. Look confident, didn't know where to stand, but you always have to look for the positive side. And this afternoon it looked fantastic, so I just went for it.
It's the motivation is no different, honestly. I still try and do the job, and especially in qualifying, you don't care, you just go for it. And in the race, we have to see how the race sort of develops. But motivation, it's actually more easy. It's just sort of fun. You come here, and I mean, you have seen me racing go-kart, and I sort of see it as an opportunity like that.
Big difference in speed this weekend between you and Juan Pablo here. Well, perhaps for the second weekend in a row. He seemed very upset after qualifying, and there seemed to be a lot of changes going on in his car towards the end of qualifying. You were sitting there looking pretty serene. Big difference there.
Yeah, I mean, it is the case sometimes. Sometimes you have the car and you feel happy, and then everything goes so easy. And then if that's, I have had it for 4 times in a row where I couldn't catch one anymore. Now it's 2 times different, but it still doesn't change that he's a very quick driver. It's just having a bit of a difficult time in a moment, and it can all be different tomorrow.
I thought it was going to be a bit better from this morning. The car felt half decent this morning. It was the first time it felt good. And got into qualifying, and we seemed to went from bad to worst. But you gotta work a bit on the car and see what happens tomorrow. You gotta say the other tires seem to be working a bit stronger than ours at the moment. We'll see.
It's been another great day for us. After the 6th place in Germany, we are 5th. Is the best qualifying session of the year, and we are very pleased. I am very close to Montoya, and so it's not too bad. The car is getting better, and the overall package was good today. Even the tires performance looks good, and I'm confident. It's going to be a difficult race, tough race physically and mentally, but I feel very strong and very positive for tomorrow.
The whole team did a very good job. We've been working very hard from the morning. yesterday and this morning we weren't very happy about the car balance, but we managed to change quite a lot on the car and make it work very well for qualifying. So 6th place, I think it's a good result.
Well, that's the reaction to qualifying. Now we're looking for the reaction to the story of the weekend so far, and that is that Jordan Ford will be the new name to be seen on the grid next season. The story broken by our own Peter Windsor. And I understand, Peter, that it wasn't just us that you broke the story too.
That's absolutely correct. The paddock's still buzzing, have to say, as it is the story of the weekend, perhaps even of the year. But we were, a couple of colleagues and myself, drawn into Eddie Jordan's office just after the warm-up, and he broke the news to us. And we then went down to the Jaguar motorhome, saw Niki Lauda there with his PR man, and said, "Can we have a reaction from you, Niki, to this news?" And he said, "What news?" And we told him the deal. And he was, I have to say, completely astonished. He immediately got onto his cell phone and rang Richard Parry-Jones to see what was going on, and said something along the lines of, as he left the motorhome, "This is completely opposite to what I'd been told was going to happen." So we have here, and you can see in the background, Niki Lauda's red cap. He's just talking to Willy Weber there. We have here a man who is in a very, very powerful position within the Ford Jaguar motorsport framework, actually apparently unaware of the details of the Jordan Ford deal, and that is an astonishing set of circumstances. Most of the teams in the pit lane now know about that lack of knowledge, if you were. And I just said to Niki, "Could we have a chat to you now?" And he sort of said, "A bit later on, please," and gave a relatively wan smile. So I don't think he's actually in the mood to want to talk to the British at the moment. I'm sure we'll get him during the day. There's no doubt about that, we'll get him. But very strange goings on here in the paddock at Hungary.
Peter, it's Damon. I don't know if you could hear, after you interviewed Eddie, I was talking to Matthew, and I mean, Eddie is a master at turning something into more than it actually is. I mean, he's not got a deal with Ford in America, strictly speaking, and he's actually engineered a deal with the European division to have Ford engines. And so from your point of view, you can see how Niki Lauda would be shocked at hearing this news, but actually it may have nothing to do with Ford at all.
Well, I have to disagree with you there. I think that any deal with Ford is a deal with Ford of America, because by definition, Ford is Ford of America. Whether you're dealing with Ford of Europe makes no difference. Ultimately, he can now go to Detroit as a Ford team owner and put to them, for example, an American driver program, and I'm sure that's what Jordan will be doing. We all know that the Red Bull money is out there to support such a program, and Eddie is not slow in putting such deals together. And I think that we're trying to read a little bit more into this Jordan deal than there is. He has done the deal with Ford. He's not paying for the engines. He's got Cosworth engines for 3 years, and I take my hat off to him completely. And I don't think he's actually painting it up for more than it is. He will have the Ford logo on the car. It will be on the cam covers. Full marks to him.
Hi Peter, Jeremy here. A couple of points. We were talking again after your exclusive this morning. Well done, mate. That was fantastic getting that this morning. The fact, though, that if Jaguar or Ford pull Jaguar out of racing in the future, it must be some kind of backup for Ford to have another team running their engines and their name on the car. But also, is there not, as we suggested earlier, a deal in place because of the Deutsche Post DHL connection to have lots of Ford trucks running around Europe thanks to the deal?
Absolutely, and it's a very, very logical deal. It's exactly what Ford should be doing in Formula One. It's the sort of deal they want. We're living in hard times now. America is in a double-dip recession, as we know. And if Ford are going to stay in motorsport, they're going to need a deal like this to keep them in. If Jaguar keep hemorrhaging money with very little result, Ford will just be gone. And I think everyone in Formula One should be very pleased that this deal's been put together. And if it makes business sense to all parties, so much the better.
What about Niki's position? Is he right on the knife edge now? If he doesn't know what's going on, his position must be far from tenable.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, I can't speak about his position personally, but I don't remember a time like this when somebody in Niki's position was actually acting at variance with what was taking place, and it's an astonishing turn of events.
Peter, thanks very much. Well done. You can go home, but not for another couple of hours. Let's have a look at...
late now.
All right. Lane, he goes. Let's have a look at the grid formation then ahead of the 2002 Hungarian Grand Prix. No prizes for guessing what colour the cars on 1 and 2 are, but is there a surprise about the fact that Rubens Barrichello has taken pole, Damon?
Well, I don't think so. I think it seems to be inconsistent with the form that he's been showing this year. I mean, it's certainly not surprising Ferrari are on the front row. They've dominated this event. But I think Michael showed that he was pretty glum at being out-qualified by his teammate. So it was a good performance by Rubens.
There is a theory, brackets mine, that that was team orders as much as we might see later on this afternoon for Rubens to win and to get himself nearer that second position.
Well, much as a good driver Michael Schumacher is, I don't think he can actually qualify, what was it, 500ths of a second behind his teammate just to satisfy some sort of team order thing. That's pretty good if he can do that.
One thing that's quite interesting at the moment, though, I mean, full marks to Rubens, great qualifying, and now he's in the perfect spot to win this race because it's very hard to get past on that first corner because it's very dirty, and once you're leading here, again, it's very difficult to get by. But there's no reason for team orders now. Yet Michael doesn't seem to have had that weight lifted off his shoulders since he won the World Championship a couple of weeks ago. It doesn't seem to be gloves off, let's all have fun and a really good battle. Yet that's what we should be presented with here, really possibly the most equal battle between Rubens and Michael yet.
OK, time is starting to run out if you want to enter our competition, you know. And remember, this ain't just any competition.
As he expected, having to call upon the spare, if you remember, Barrichello with a problem with his race car coming onto the grid. Back inside the Sauber pit now, and Felipe Massa and Nick Heidfeld both well set here on the grid to score points this afternoon. They start 7th and 8th. Points might pay only down to 6th place, but it is a long Grand Prix, and I would expect to see at least one or two of the drivers who are ahead of them on the grid suffer some sort of problem throughout the course of the race. A great opportunity here today for Sauber, and they are trying to narrow the gap slightly to Renault in the Constructors' battle. They've got a chance of trying to reclaim that 4th place that they took in the Constructors' Championship last year. And if we just look back over recent previous winners of the Grand Prix, Michael Schumacher's name featuring, of course. Last year he dominated the race. It was a 1-2 finish, himself and Barrichello. Mika Hakkinen, though, winning in 2000 and in 1999. Michael Schumacher, and one of those really coming through the start of the race. It was through getting into the first corner ahead that Mika Hakkinen managed to win in 2000. A superb move, almost in the pit lane he was, trying to get past Michael. But Michael Schumacher winning, as I say, in 1998 with that 3-stop strategy that Ross Brawn really called on the hoof. They started the race on a 2-stop and they called a 3-stop during the race.
Yeah, a very brave decision, and in fact I don't think any other driver in the Grand Prix at that time could have pulled off that particular stunt. But Michael Schumacher is the one man who, when he is called upon to dig deep and find maybe another 5 or 8 seconds prior to a pit stop which is imminent, then he is capable of doing that. How he manages it, no one else does. Well, that's why Michael is now the only second 5-time world champion, and I promise you, who would bet against him continuing? Everything fair and hopeful that he couldn't do it again in 2003. I mean, it's an awful prospect. I think that Ferrari will dominate Formula One in the way they've done this year again next year. We really, really need desperately for McLaren and for Williams, for Renault. Those are the 3 other teams that have got the realistic chance of taking that challenge to Ferrari, to get their acts together and give these teams something to really think about and work for.
Well, happy, smiley Juan Pablo Montoya. He wasn't very happy and smiley after qualifying yesterday, ending up 4th on the grid, nearly a second slower than teammate Ralf Schumacher. They were not happy with setup. Peter Windsor was telling us this morning they did discover that they had made the odd mistake trying to transfer Ralf Schumacher's setup onto Montoya's car. They'd gone wrong somewhere, and that might have explained part of his loss of performance. He does start 4th place. That is the dirty side of the track, but I have to say, having watched the Porsche Super Cup race this morning, we saw a great start from the guy that started in 4th, so do not count against it. It can be done, and in fact Fisichella made a great start from 4th here a couple of years ago himself.
Well, it shouldn't be such a problem because, of course, traction control, launch control as it's used actually at a start of a Grand Prix is something that we'll take into account, but nevertheless it's maybe more in the driver's mind, the psychological aspect of a Grand Prix, that if you're on the dirty side you already inhibit yourself by believing you're at a disadvantage. But just then, going back to the situation with Montoya and Ralf Schumacher, and the Williams team did enough to saying they found that the car setup wasn't quite perfect. There was still a second gap this morning between Montoya and Ralf Schumacher. Ralf was only 6th because Montoya down in 16th, and we had virtually a second gap between them in qualifying, where Ralf was 3rd and Montoya 4th. So whatever they did to correct the problems and find those minor adjustments, it didn't make any difference as far as we can see.
No, that's very true. So a shame, but we shall see whether it works for them when they come out in the race itself. Michael Schumacher getting ready. Of course, we're about to see the cars come out on track. The clock counting down, and in a few moments' time, the pit lane will be open for what they call the reconnaissance laps, an opportunity to check the race car and spare car is working effectively, and then we'll see them make their way onto the grid. Now, what we will also see, slightly unusually, is a third Jordan come out onto the track, and this is for Zsolt Baumgartner, who is a Hungarian driver competing in the Formula 3000 Championship, and we're expecting to see him come out to do his little run. In fact, he may well have had that little run earlier on. They were due to be running that at 12:15, so it may well be that they've already had that spare car out and give him a little demo run for the crowds to cheer about.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have a local guy in the car, but I think it's probably unlikely that once the pit lane is open, the lights have now gone to red. I got from green, so we need to see Olivier Panis just going to do a launch control start, and I think.
We're joined now by Niki Lauda, who already has Ford engines in the back of his Jaguar cars this season. Niki, thanks for joining us. As far as we understand, you had no knowledge of this deal.
No, this is not true. I was part of this deal, there's no question about it. We negotiated everything together with Ford, with Eddie Jordan and Cosworth.
Hi Niki, Jeremy Hart here. Is this a backup just in case the plug gets pulled on Jaguar in the future?
No, I don't think so at all. This is, as you know, Cosworth has been giving engines to other teams because we're an engine manufacturer. So it's quite logic that we have to find ourselves in a position where we have 4 cars running with the Ford Cosworth engine.
And you've been talking a lot to the boss of Red Bull, I understand, this weekend. I mean, is there any connection there at all, either for Jaguar or for, you know, what's all the talk about?
No, I mean, the talk about is, I know Didier Mateschitz very well because he's Austrian, if you might know, but there was no discussion whatsoever in connection with the Jaguar Racing or our team.
Niki, can you clarify which engine Jordan will have next year?
I tell you what we are going to do next week on Tuesday. We're going to have a Cosworth press release where all details will then say all the details of our contract, how this is going to work. So therefore I can't say anything today because next Tuesday we're going to do that.
With your hat as Jaguar team boss on, can you say how it affects the Jaguar team?
Not at all, because really the advantage for both, I mean, I was the first this year when I joined my job at the CEO of PPT to give Aeros an engine. So the simple reason is I have 4 engines in the field where we can develop engines quicker, and in the end we both have more competitive engines. So this is my view, because in the end you have to build a good car with a good engine if you want to win here.
Niki, Damon, we'd be interested to know then, is the payment for these engines coming from the Jordan team or one of his sponsors, or is it Ford that are paying for his engines?
Now, all these details, honestly, we have to tell everything on Tuesday next week. This is the plan from Cosworth, and I have to stick to this, so we're going to do this all on Tuesday.
Niki, thanks for your time. Good luck in the race.
Thank you.
So the stage is well and truly set for race 13 of the 2002 Formula 1 season. I don't know if Michael Schumacher is superstitious. Maybe he doesn't need to be, as he's certainly had precious little bad luck since last dropping out through mechanical failure in Germany last season. A win today will make it 10 so far this year, a new record for victories in a single season. And funny we should be talking about Michael Schumacher. First, I don't say face, helmet that we see in preparation for the race.
Yeah, he was on half rations of humour, I think, after yesterday's
Not like him.
Yeah. Well, he's really on full rations, but he was on half his normal half rations. But I think it'll be interesting to see where he comes from, though, on second place on the grid. He's on the dirty side, yet you know, if anybody can do it, he can, alongside Rubens Barrichello. But team orders, absolutely not. This is the gauntlet's down. Rubens has got his best chance in the last few races to win here, and let's face it, he deserves it after all the backup he's given Michael this season.
We heard from Niki Lauda just a few moments ago. Peter Windsor, interested to hear Nicky's comments. One thing you said another, Pete.
Looks like it, doesn't it? Yes. All I can say is that a colleague and I went down to the Jaguar motorhome immediately after we'd spoken to Eddie Jordan and said, Nicky, can we have your reaction? He said, reaction to what? And we said, the Jordan Ford deal. And he said, and I quote, I know nothing about it. What is this? So you tell me.
Peter, as Damon, I think we ought to, perhaps you can actually fill it in, but I mean, why is it, it seems to me it's particularly relevant at the moment with Formula One being invested in so heavily by motor companies. It is actually an issue because Eddie has always been against, he's actually, whether it's because he can't get a big car manufacturer to back his team or what, but he's always been against massive investment by car manufacturers. And here we've got a really classic example of a team like Jaguar who are supposed to be taking all the money from Ford and investing it, and another team trying to survive by getting an engine deal. Is Formula One better or worse with these car manufacturers involved?
I think what Eddie's always been against, if I read him correctly, is Ford doing what they've done with the Jaguar team. In other words, running a team themselves and controlling that whole operation. Eddie always believed about teams with manufacturers supplying the engines, which he's now done. And I guess in the future he will hope that Ford's involvement is unique to the Jordan team and that the whole Jaguar thing is a healthy way for Formula One to exist in the future. So I should think he's very happy with the way things are going. And if I was in the Jaguar camp, I'd be very nervous right now.
You're not a bad judge, Peter. Back to you in a couple of moments. In the meantime, your colleague Bruce Jones has caught up with Ottmar Safnauer of Honda to talk about the engines that Eddie's leaving behind, I presume.
Ottmar Safnauer of Honda Racing. The announcement came out just an hour or so ago that the Honda engine deal with Jordan will be terminated at the end of this year. What can you tell me about that?
That's right. At the end of this year, Honda will be focusing all of its efforts with British American Racing and not with Jordan any longer. It was a mutually agreed decision. We did have a contract with Jordan for another year, but both we at Honda and Jordan agreed that they would be better off with perhaps a 3-year contract somewhere else, and we may be better off just focusing on one team.
So obviously you're going to be focusing on British American Racing. How much more attention will you be able to give them next year? Is this the key to Honda sort of moving closer to the front of the race order?
Yeah, this will definitely help in that regard. For instance, this year when we had an upgrade of the engine, we shared those engines, the precious few, with both teams. Next year, we will be able to concentrate on one team. All the upgrades will go to British American Racing, and we'll further develop our joint chassis development program with them as well.
Ottmar, thanks for talking to us.
Timing of all of this is somewhat strange. If you look upon Fisichella's performance in qualifying, putting the Jordan onto their best place on the grid so far this season, and they're happily announcing they're going off next season.
Well, this has just saved Eddie Jordan's bacon big time. And he had the contract, as everyone said. He said, as the guy from Honda just said just then, that he could have raced with Honda next year. But beyond that, he had nothing as far as we know. But to have this saving grace of the engines from Cosworth with whatever the Ford deal is to fund it has saved Eddie, given him a lot of breathing space, and will also make the driver choice interesting for next year, because no longer does he have to put Takuma Sato in the car because of the Honda connection, although Sato, as we understand, has a contract with Jordan still for next year, as does Giancarlo Fisichella. But more likely, we could see Heinz-Harald Frentzen back at Jordan. We could even see Eddie Irvine at Jordan because of the Benson-Hedges connection. So it's complete change around, and it really has saved Eddie Jordan from a possible very, very disastrous year next year with nothing in the bag for the year after. So it's given him some major breathing space and saved Jordan Grand Prix.
But what about what he's leaving behind? Now BAR have the sole attention of Honda, an engine which apparently is starting to cook nicely. Does that mean that we should look forward to a good season next year for Villeneuve, if he's still there?
I think that when Honda came into Formula One, I think they still viewed it that they could supply an engine to a team and the team would make their engine look good, or the other way around. And Formula One has changed enormously. I mean, you know, we've got a team like Toyota who've set up entirely their own team. They're from scratch. You've got Ferrari, who've always had their own engines and car built together. And you've got teams like Williams, we're just looking at now, who have had allegiances, very close allegiances with engine manufacturers, but they're still basically hanging on to their part of the deal. And then we've got Jaguar, who were an already established team, who are trying to brand themselves as a Jaguar, but actually running a Ford Cosworth engine. And the difference is that it's much easier if you can work together with an engine manufacturer and the designers of the cars to build yourself the ultimate machine. And it's such an expensive sport now that it makes sense for someone like Honda to align themselves with one team and just put all their eggs into that basket and invest their money in one place rather than spread it around.
But we don't have to go back too many years, Damon, and Honda were had set up their own Formula One team and were very close to actually racing it.
In fact, they were. You're absolutely right. They were trying to do that, and one of the things that stopped that was that Eddie Jordan got a Honda engine deal.
If you were going shopping, if such things happen next season for an engine, and you had a choice between what Honda will provide and what Eddie Jordan will get from Ford, which would you buy?
Well, you know, I think it's my view of this is just to clear things up. To me, Eddie Jordan has saved face because he's actually lost the Honda engine deal. That's what's happened. BAR won the Honda engine deal off of Eddie. He had hoped to get the Honda engine deal exclusively. He was already paying some money to get Honda engine deals anyway. And he's now lost that. And what he's got is a customer Cosworth engine deal. And he's turned it around to make it look like he's getting sponsorship from Ford, which he's not.
All these problems are miles removed from those at Ferrari. What problems, you may ask? Here's Peter Windsor with Ross Brawn.
Ross, could you share the joke with us? Seem to be having a bit of a laugh on the radio there.
It was a bit rude, actually. I don't think I should.
Michael or Ruben?
No, the driver's out of the car. I was talking to one of the engineers. So.
Everything okay with the cars? No last-minute glitches?
No, seems okay. Michael was just checking some tyres because he flat-spotted a tyre this morning, and a tyre that we wanted to use in the race. So we had it rebalanced, and he was just checking on the outlaps to make sure it felt okay.
I gather Michael used a completely new set in qualifying and Rubens had a mixed set. Does that affect Michael's new tyre choice in the race, a number of new tyres available to him in the race?
He does have enough. Yeah, not quite. No, we'll be running scrub tyres at the front in some of the sessions. Rubens had a complete choice because he ran a scrub set of fronts for qualifying. I think retrospectively it gave him a little bit more stability in qualifying. With Michael, I think he had the fastest T-section times, but not altogether. We either got it right at the beginning of the lap or right at the end of the lap. So retrospectively, probably with Michael, it could have been better to have had scrub fronts as well.
A lot of talk about how dirty it is offline here. How big a disadvantage is it to be on the right-hand side of the grid, do you think, here?
It's a little bit. It's not too long a run into the first corner, but it's a little bit of a disadvantage. I mean, the modern start systems puts everyone pretty equal in that respect, so it does just depend on the grip, but I'm sure Michael's going to be trying to get across to the other side as quickly as he can.
We look forward to seeing that. Thank you, Russ. Good luck.
The question is, does he get across to the other side in front or behind Rubens Barrichello, and in fact the two Williams as well? That'll be an interesting scrap for the first corner.
It was His Royal Highness the Archduke Otto von Habsburg, but I don't suppose either of you did.
We had lunch the other day, actually. You weren't able to make it. Ralph here is pretty pleased with himself, I think, for qualifying nearly a second ahead of his teammate. It's worth making that point because Montoya there, we're watching Montoya, he's actually, although he's a second behind, being hugged by our leader here at Sky, Mr. Eccleston. And yeah, he is a second behind his teammate, and yet he's not a place further down the grid. He's only he managed to keep his place. So that's how big the difference is between Ferrari and Williams and the rest of the field. And the next person is Fisichella, who did an absolutely brilliant job getting himself that far up the grid. But he's a brilliant driver, and Fisichella really should have a stab at the world champion. He should be in Ferrari, I think.
All right, I don't about a stab at the World Championship just yet, but a stab at your first Grand Prix is many a young man's dream. Anthony Davison joins us live now, right from the grid. Anthony, I asked you this question on Friday. I've no embarrassment about asking you again. How does it feel?
It feels amazing. There's so many people here, and the parade lap as well of all the drivers was an experience. I stood alongside DC and Takuma, and it was great to speak to those guys.
Anthony, Damon Hill here. I would give you some advice, but I don't think you need any. We all think you've done a great job to get in the race, and you're also in a brilliant position to be able to see what's going on. There's nothing behind you. Maybe it's a good place to start from.
No, go on, Damon, give me some advice. I need it.
Well, I think I was in a Brabham once, and I just kept going, and I nearly ended up in the points. Hungary's a very long race, and you need the experience. So you're just keeping going is actually a really good tactic in this race.
Yeah, that's all I can do from this position, I think, just to keep going and just to read the race and see what happens.
Anthony, you obviously want to, it's Jeremy Hart here, you want to keep yourself out of trouble, I guess, during the race. Are you psyched up, though, for the fact that you're going to have Michael Schumacher coming round, maybe lapping you a few laps into the race? You're going to be fighting with the best drivers in the world. How do you get to grips with that psychologically? Obviously, you've got the talent, otherwise you wouldn't be there, but mentally you must be sort of scrabbling for some inspiration.
Well, I hope it doesn't work out that I'm actually fighting with them. That wouldn't be too good. I want to get out their way, and I know I'm aware that I've got a big responsibility to do ahead of me, and I just want to have a nice, clean end to the weekend.
What would be a good result for you?
Back of the grid, just finish the race. That's all I'm interested.
Good luck.
We hope you finish the race, Anthony. We know you're a bit busy. Speak to you in a couple of hours.
Thanks a lot.
It's quite heartwarming, isn't it? Now then, from one level of experience completely up the other end to another, Peter's talking to Ralf Schumacher.
First off, Ralf, how did the car feel in the warm-up this morning and onto the grid just then?
Was fine this morning, and it's even now better. We made some small changes to be ready for the race.
We were just talking to Ross Brawn, and he said he's pretty sure that Michael's going to pull over to the left-hand side as quickly as possible because it's so dirty on the right. That's right where you're going to be, isn't it?
Well, as long as he does it behind me, I don't mind.
Thank you very much, Ralf. Good luck.
We saw on, I could see on one of the channels actually, track Sky Button 4, there's a shot of a guy holding a flag up, and there seems to be quite a lot of wind going around, and this can be a problem in Hungary. It does get very dusty, as we talked about in qualifying, and the high winds also tends to make the car understeer and oversteer slightly differently in various parts of the circuit. This is one of these tracks where you cannot count on the track being the same as it was the previous lap. When you come round to a corner, you always approach it in a certain amount of trepidation because people go off, they drag dirt onto the track, and from one lap to the next it can be a completely different circuit. Just leading the race around here, every lap's a new experience, and it's one of the trickiest tracks to drive on. Very often you see people sliding off, making mistakes in the race.
Peter has been joined by Rubens Barrichello.
Rubens looking very cool and relaxed. Nice day for a motor race, eh?
Yeah, nice day for a good try. You know, just keep it calm and have a good start, and off we go. I mean, if the day deserves to me, we're going to see at the end. If don't, we keep on trying.
Everything feel good this morning and onto the grid?
Yeah, I had a quick spin this morning, but it's just trying.
Just to loosen yourself up a bit?
Yeah, just to make it really, to see where the limit is for the car. It's going to be an afternoon that you're going to have to fight with the tires to keep it nicely balanced, so keeping cool.
We'll leave you to your drinking. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Well, we like Rubens, don't we, Matthew? I mean, you know, when you see him smiling there, he actually just like, you know, seems to be genuinely relaxed. I think it's one of these things that qualifying seems to be much more tense than the start of a race. It's difficult to imagine how drivers can talk at the beginning of the race, but actually they feel to some extent they've done all that they can, and all the preparation is in place. They've qualified, and there's nothing to do more apart from just look at the lights.
We like Rubens, we like David Coulthard. He always gives us a good chat. Here he is doing same with Peter Windsor.
Sorry, a bit late, David. It's quite a long way down the grid here to walk.
Well, I was just saying to Ellen there that they say you meet a better class of person down this end of the grid, but I have to be honest, I'm not so sure.
Thank you very much. Well, obviously problems with the car yesterday. Any improvements this morning and onto the grid?
Yeah, the car's very similar, so you know, I could do the usual sort of make a change on the grid, but we'd be going a bit blind really because we haven't been able to sort the balance out so far this weekend. So I've just left the car, get out there. Obviously, got a fresh set to start with and see how the balance is and make a decision on what tyres to run thereafter.
And strangely, you were saying yesterday, with the build-up in heat, you're not getting the increase in grip this time.
We don't appear to be. I think as the track rubbers in, we may well start to find a little balance towards the end of the race, but of course the damage is already done so far.
Well, very best of luck anyway. Thank you.
Well, we can move quite a way up the grid from David Coulthard now and join Giancarlo Fisichella. Oh, no, we can't. Oh, what a shame, because he's put the Jordan on 5th. That's their best position of the grid so far. And, you know, if I just kept blathering on like an idiot, he'd turn up. And here he is, Giancarlo, 5th. Congratulations. Are you looking forward to maybe improving upon that in the race?
Yeah, so why not? I'm very pleased about the performance of yesterday. We have been quite competitive for the weekend. Even this morning in the warm-up, the car balance was good. I think the overall package is good too, and I'm confident. It will be a very tough race physically and mentally, but I feel strong and I feel very positive.
Giancarlo, it's Damon Hill here speaking. How much do you think of the performance this weekend has been down to Bridgestone? We noticed that Ferrari have got a big gap and it seemed to have a big advantage. Do you think that Bridgestone have made a better decision this weekend than Michelin?
Hi, Damon. Yeah, I think so. The Bridgestone tyres are working very well here. The compound looks very good, and even they are very consistent during the race distance. So we are very pleased, and obviously even in the qualifying session I think the Bridgestone performance was a little bit better than Michelin.
Thank you very much. Good luck for the race.
Thank you, Wade.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that it certainly appears that Bridgestone have gained an advantage over Michelin this weekend and made the right decisions. Michelin have not done quite the job that people I think thought they would do when they come into Formula 1. They're still learning, finding their feet, and it really has shown up that Bridgestone have got incredibly good technology, race tyre technology, and have understood Formula 1 quite well. It's not just that they've worked with Ferrari and made a tyre specifically to that car. It works well on the Jordan too.
All right, talking of Jordan and the fact that they have now made VAR the sole recipients of a Honda engine next season. And let's have a word with David Richards via Bruce Jones.
David Richards, it's been announced today that Honda will no longer continue with Jordan for next year, so you have soleless use of the Honda engine. That must be really good news for British American racing.
Well, it's a relationship that's been developing over some months now, working more closely with, not just on the engine, but we're working on a lot of chassis development work and really forging a very close link between the two organisations.
Well, it sounds much better deal for you. Looking to today's race, it's very hot here on the grid, a bit of wind. What do you think is going to be the tyre wear today? Should be quite high, don't you think?
I don't think so. Our Bridgestones are working exceptionally well, and of course as the temperature comes up, you know, it can change everything, of course, but it's going to be a race of attrition, that's for sure. More for the drivers than anybody else.
But you'd predict it'll be a two-stop race by and large?
Well, I think there'll be various strategies. I wouldn't be surprised to see someone go one stop. I wouldn't even be surprised to see someone go three, so who knows?
Well, it worked for Michael in '98 here, 3 stops. Thanks very much, David.
So, Jeremy, is it going to be 1, 2 or 3 stops?
Well, 2 is the norm, but you know, David's not wrong. We might see a 1 stop, or we might see a 3, and it depends really on weights as the cars come off. It depends how heavy the fuel loads are as they come off the grid. Really, see what they're going to do.
I'm going to put my neck out and actually say that I think there's a strong possibility one of the Ferraris doing a 3-stop, and I think there's a strong chance of one of the McLarens doing a 1-stop. And the reason the McLarens would do a one-stop is because I think they believe they've qualified lower than their ultimate performance. I think they feel if they could stay out longer, they'll go faster and gain more time.
We spoke to Giancarlo Fisichella a moment ago. He's joined on the third row of the grid by Jarno Trulli, who's joined now by Peter.
Jarno, we'll get to you quickly before we put your other earplug in, but everything feel okay with the car?
Yes, we did check it this morning on 10 laps long run, just to confirm to have any problem on the rear tires as I had in Hockenheim for blistering, but should be all right.
I was watching you this morning doing some very nice launch control starts. Look pretty good.
Yeah, it looked pretty good, and hope that will be good enough for the race now.
Yeah, well, you get over to the left-hand side of the grid pretty quickly, I guess.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Well, just over 5 minutes to go then until the formation lap of the 2002 Hungarian Grand Prix.
Interesting what Damon was saying just now with the one stop for McLaren. History is not always a good indicator of how things go, but if you go back to the late 80s, Nigel Mansell actually won this race from 12th position on the grid, so that'll give DC some heart, and it's going to take something radical at McLaren really to pull something out of the bag here, I think. And so your idea of a one-stopper is maybe not so far off for McLaren, because they got nothing to lose where they are at the moment.
No, they're not in the points, but they also, and it's fair to assume that car is faster than a lot of the cars in front of it, and I think that you may find them just holding on to the cars ahead of them by the sheer fact that the car is quicker and yet carrying more fuel. And the moment the cars in front pull in, they can make up that time that they've lost in qualifying.
There's an interesting conversation going on between Ron Dennis and Eddie Jordan. Ron saying, "You're a lucky Irishman," probably, or words to that effect. But he said, "Well, you're not so lucky today with your McLarens down where they are out of the top 10." But it's going to be a very interesting race, as you say, with the speed that the McLarens normally carry. We could get a great concertina effect up at the front, and a good old battle. And of course, as Jensen told us yesterday, he's starting 9th on the grid. He doesn't want to stay there. He wants to battle and take those risks of going onto the dirty side of the track to try and make up positions. So I think we could.
Toyota and Minardi scored points. Well, who would have thought of Toyota and Minardi scoring points on merit? But the point is that they were there when it mattered, and that was when the checkered flag came down.
So looking at the track layout once again, the lap record existing to Mika Hakkinen last year, 1:16.7. I think that's likely to fall here today, with the improvement in performance that we saw in qualifying over the times that were set last year. About 7/10 of a second, 3/4 of a second improvement from qualifying in this year to last. So we could be looking at a 16.0 perhaps as fastest lap if we can extrapolate that the same way. We'll have to wait and see as to what happens. Just 3 minutes to go now. The safety car making its way around for a final checkup of the circuit to ensure that everything is clear. And Barrichello and Michael Schumacher will head the field away at the start of the formation lap. Absolutely perfect weather conditions. Let's just check through this grid once again as the Ferraris will head them away. So Barrichello, Michael Schumacher and all Ferrari front row. Ralf Schumacher and Montoya with Williams on the second row. Then it's the Jordan of Fisichella, the Renault of Jarno Trulli, and then the two Saubers together, Felipe Massa and Nick Heidfeld. Jenson Button and David Coulthard could be battling over a top 10 position, starting 9th and 10th on the grid, and Kimi Räikkönen has lots of work to do, starting in 11th place, held up a little bit yesterday, but also part of the whole McLaren question as to why they couldn't get more pace out of the car. Olivier Panis, keep an eye on him, starting 12th, has certainly been going quickly all weekend. Now he has to try and fight his way through the order. His teammate Villeneuve starting 13th. Then it's Sato and De La Rosa and Irvine, the two Jaguars together there on the 8th row of the grid. Right behind them, the two Toyotas, and then again in team formation all the way to the back of the field, we have Mark Webber and new boy Anthony Davidson, and both Minardis making it well into the Grand Prix this time. No problems of non-qualification. Anthony Davidson stepping into the shoes of Alex Young and making it safely and very competently. Sadly, only 20 cars on the grid as the Arrows team not competing in Hungary.
No, that's a disappointment. Hopefully they will be back for Belgium. As we look at the grid, as the 2 additional slots that are not being filled here this weekend, 21 and 22. Well, we don't know who would have been there. It may have been the 2 Minardis. Probably it would have been in reality, because the pace of the 2 Arrows has always been this year ahead of that of Minardi. And now just a minute to go before this field makes its way for the final parade lap and then comes back onto the grid, and that countdown to the 5 lights coming on, then going out in a period between 3 and 6 seconds. And fresh looking tyres on the front of Rubens' Ferrari. Michael Schumacher actually had a problem. We didn't notice it so much. He locked up one of the tyres on his car, I assume it was a front, on a set of tyres he wants to use here this afternoon. So Ferrari had to take it back to Bridgestone to have it rebalanced, and he actually checked out that set of tyres once the pit lane opened, went back in again. So Michael obviously liking one particular set of tyres that he felt would be helpful to him in this afternoon's Grand Prix, and even though he locked it up, maybe a very slight flat spot, that's been cured by rebalancing.
Now, is Barrichello going to get away safely from the formation lap this time? He did last time, but it was only after a rapid change to the spare car. The 2 previous Grand Prix, he didn't get away properly. All the buttons have been pressed, all the systems have been checked over and over by the Ferrari engineers. Let's see if it works this time. The formation lap does get underway, and away they go. Yes, Barrichello does manage to get away. Look at Schumacher laying down plenty of rubber there.
Well, it's like being in a drag strip. Look at the black lines. Everybody, particularly those on right of screen. Anthony Davidson, I think he left the most smoke and the most rubber. He must have just hung that thing on the limiter, let the hand clutch go. But look, was that gravel coming out of somebody's car? There's a huge amount of stuff. Well, maybe that was ice. It's the dry ice, or not the dry, it's the ice that they put into the radiator. Just dry ice to keep those temperatures down while the cars are stationary. So that's what shot out when they put the brakes on, out of those air intakes. And of course, by the time the cars come around for their first lap, hopefully that will not be there, or if it is, it could be slightly tricky for those going down the inside.
I think it will be probably long gone by the time they get back round, as the 2 Salvas make their way through. A colourful field in beautiful weather conditions here in Hungary, and we're likely to see quite a train of cars attacking one another throughout this race. The question is, can they get past? A lot of it will depend on the first corner. A few years ago, Mika Häkkinen, starting 3rd, dived down the inside of Michael Schumacher into that first corner and went on to win the Grand Prix. There wasn't a lot Schumacher could do about it. Well, can Ralph do similarly? How is the launch control system on the Williams this weekend? The electronics experts have been working flat out to try and get the best performance from their launch controls all weekend.
Indeed, they brought the key personnel here this weekend with that very prospect in mind, but there's an unusual sight. 2 McLarens, followed by 2 BARs. You see Coulthard and Kimi Räikkönen starting right in the heart of this field is something I'm sure that well, the 2 drivers, the entire team want to put behind themselves, but they've got to make the best of what they've got. It's a tough Grand Prix. Reliability is key, but mainly it's keeping the car on the island. Again, just making sure that those rear tyres have been cleaned of any dust that may have been on the track. Should have been brushed away following the Porsche Michelin Super Cup race. Nevertheless, drivers taking the opportunity just to lay a little bit more rubber.
Now then, spare a thought for Anthony Davidson. He's making his way round on this formation lap to start his first ever Grand Prix. He starts right at the back of the field. All other 19 cars are ahead of him. The heart rate must be racing a little bit. He is an experienced racer through the ranks of Formula Ford and through Formula 3, a brilliant kart racer as well. But now he has his opportunity to start his first Grand Prix. He'll be starting at the back, whilst Barrichello and Michael Schumacher start at the front. There is the view from the pit wall. Michael Schumacher nearest us on the so-called dirty side of the track. Will it have cleaned up sufficiently for Michael Schumacher to hold on to second, perhaps even challenge Barrichello as they head down towards the first corner? Here we go, all set to go. 5 lights come on. We wait for them to go out. The Hungarian Grand Prix is underway. It's Barrichello who gets away well, and Ralf Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher trying to move up into second versus his brother. Look at this battle side by side. Critical this in the whole Grand Prix. Michael gets into second, Ralf into third, and Fisichella to fourth.
Oh, and look at that. Oh, dear. All cars going all diving everywhere out of turn 1. I mean, there's a real scrum as they come down into turn 2. Contact. Well, one of the McLarens, I couldn't see. I think that was button turned by the Coulthard or Räikkönen. but they've both continued, but wheel-to-wheel contact in turn 2.
So Montoya making a dreadful getaway. He's dropped behind Fisichella, he's dropped behind Massa, he's dropped behind Button, and Montoya down in 7th position. It's not a good getaway at all for the man who started in 4th. It's the 2 Ferraris up front, Ralph in 3rd, Fisichella 4th, Felipe Massa in a fantastic 5th position. He started 7th, and Montoya, the big loser there. That one of the Toyotas has moved up pretty well. That's Mika Salo, who's come up to 15th.
Oh, Ralph Schumacher committed. Talk about giving it a big one through those turns, through turn 10 into 11. But that contact was Nick Heidfeld and David Coulthard we saw in turn 2. But look at the Ferraris already. They must have pulled out, well, the best part of nearly 2 seconds. Barrichello to Ralph Schumacher in 3rd place, and they are just disappearing out of sight and probably out of mind as well.
Michael Schumacher always knew it would be tough to hold on to 2nd off that dirty side of the grid, but he did manage to do it, and he's now hounding Rubens Barrichello. 3rd place for Schumacher, Ralph. Then it's Fisichella, Massa. Button. Trulli didn't do well at all at the start. Trulli, in fact, swapping positions with Button. They started 6th and 9th in favour of Trulli. They now run 6th and 9th in favour of Button.
Looking back from Montoya's Williams, that's Kimi Raikkonen in the McLaren. And they are within, well, it's showing 1/10 of a second on the screen. The reality is it can't get much closer. Barrichello stretches that lead, it's half a second at the end of the first lap. It's irrelevant because really you can't run very much closer than that, particularly in a single-seater car on the Hungaroring. You don't want to either. You don't want to inhibit the airflow through the radiators. But good job, good start from Fisichella and Felipe Massa.
Well, let's take another look at the start. Lots to watch out for. Bad start for Jarno Trulli from 6th place on the grid. Montoya also slow away. Fisichella got past him. Trulli initially got ahead of Montoya. Look at, I think that was Button trying to come around the outside into the first corner, and then Button going side to side with his teammate. Trulli very slow in the mid part of the corner.
And then Raikkonen also on the inside cut up, so Trulli got in it was a real sandwich there, and it was a tough break, because whichever way he looked, he had traffic on the inside, traffic on the outside, and he did the right thing, just let them all go.
Yes, but it's lost him a lot of places, and at this place it is very difficult to make them up around the Hungaroring. Here is Felipe Massa then, running in 5th position. Good getaway for him, managed to stay out of trouble. All 20 cars making it around safely. Davidson on his Grand Prix debut, getting through those first tricky corners very safely. He is last, but he's still running.
The McLaren team were in the pit lane. They've just walked back into the garages. I think they may have been worried. This is the view from Jarno Trulli. He started on right. There's Felipe Massa. Just ahead, you see Giancarlo Fisichella. Then Button comes round the outside. Watch for Kimi Raikkonen up the inside. Now there's the reason why Trulli just had no choice. Button on Raikkonen, dive down Raikkonen.
I think that was Montoya actually, John. I think it was Montoya who was on his inside in the Williams there, and that was the Renault of Button.
Okay, there's the contact. That was David Coulthard this time.
Yeah, then the McLaren coming past there, so it was all going on there, wasn't it? Right in the middle, and Montoya and Button also virtually banging wheels as they came out of turn 2.
Yeah, that was a fairly severe knock. That would not be ideal, because your front suspension, your front toe could be damaged by that. So Williams panic. Oh, this is a replay. In fact, they're just looking at what may have been an incident. That was at the start of the race. It's all okay. It just, unless you saw the replay on the screen, you'd have thought there was a big panic for Williams.
Well, the other big loser on the start was Olivier Panis. What a shame. He's been running well this weekend. Poor qualifying in the end, and he's down to 19th. He's only ahead of Davidson. So, and there's only a tiny gap between them. Davidson's staying with Panis at the moment. In fact, Webber, well, they're all together. It's just a whole train of cars towards the back of the field currently, separated by 1/10 of a second everywhere. As we look at the order a little bit further up front, Michael Schumacher with the fastest lap as he chases down Barrichello up front. The 2 Ferraris getting away. The gap back to Ralf Schumacher already 4.2 seconds.
So Raikkonen looking forward to Montoya through turn 4. In the sprint down into turn 5.
Yeah, now these two had quite a tussle last time out at Hockenheim, didn't they? But that was for a slightly better position than this. They're in 7th and 8th places, really not ideal. Raikkonen getting the better of the start, considering he started 11th. Montoya started 4th, and there he is down in 7th.
Yeah, because remember, I don't know how much fuel there will be on Montoya's car. On the other hand, Raikkonen might be in a lower fuel, but remember also that the Williams is generally considered more, it just uses its tyres more, it wears them out quicker. The McLaren now with fuel on board might be that little bit easier, and that's why we're seeing Raikkonen now putting pressure onto Juan Pablo Montoya, and that battle for 7th place.
Barrichello and Michael Schumacher lead, pulling away from Ralf Schumacher in third place. Then it's Giancarlo Fisichella. A good, strong fourth place for the Jordan at the moment. Can they hold on to that? It's a long, long way to go in this Grand Prix. 77 lap race. There's still 73 to go.
These two lead cars are pulling away by a second a lap. Barrichello, new fastest lap, 18.5. The best of the rest is from Fisichella and Ralf Schumacher on a 19.7.
Put a wheel on the dirt, just turning into turn 4 there. Barrichello didn't actually affect him, but perhaps indicating that he's pushing very hard indeed as he tries to stay ahead of Schumacher and pull them away from their competitors in third and fourth, Ralf Schumacher and Giancarlo Fisichella. Other battles going on, just coming through the shot, Montoya, then Trulli with Coulthard right behind him, and then the second salvo of Nick Heidfeld. He was only one place off his teammate in qualifying, but with that first lap sort out, Massa is 5th and Heidfeld is 11th.
And Jarno Trulli doing the best he can to fend off David Coulthard, who basically is capable of running quicker in a race condition than the Renault. But of course the problem here is, where do you find a way past? Coulthard's strengths will come maybe a little bit more on top speed, but of course he's not going to get into position, and it's going to take an error from Trulli to give Coulthard that opportunity or the momentum to sweep past. And the only place that's realistic is here, but he's got to be right on the gearbox of the Renault, and so far he's not shown signs of getting close enough to do so.
Look at these two going, the two Ferraris just disappearing up front at the moment. Rubens Barrichello, after 5 laps, already has a 6.1 second advantage over Ralf in third. Michael Schumacher still chasing him down as these two continue very much in their own race at this point. Further on down the field in the classification, you can see Irvine in 13th. Had a good first lap, Irvine. Didn't go off on the first lap, as happened to him last year, and he moved ahead of his teammates, De La Rosa. Also got ahead of Sato. So 13th place currently, just behind Jacques Villeneuve.
Then on the last lap, both Ferraris have backed off, well, by just over half a second a lap now. That may be because the tyres are now just beginning to get to the point where they've settled down this degradation that happens, where the performance drops off. So they're now running in the middle, or sorry, the low 1 minute 19s, contrasting that to Ralf Schumacher, 1:19.9, and then the rest of the field, the best of which is still Fisichella at 20.2.
So the Ferrari fans are happy at the moment with Barrichello and Michael Schumacher storming away up front in this brilliant 2002 Ferrari chassis engine combination. It's taken 10 victories out of the 12 Grand Prix in the hands of both Michael and Rubens Barrichello this year. Barrichello, though, seeking only his second victory of the season. Long way back, we've got a battle here going on between De La Rosa and Mika Salo. Salo did well on that first lap as well, moving up to 15th position. But it does look as though he might be holding up a bit of a train of cars here, John, because he's dropped away from Takuma Sato. He's 3.7 seconds behind the second Jordan.
Yes, I think you're right. Just looking at Salo's lap times, 21.7, and the car ahead of him is Takuma Sato, who's running, in fact, just a second a lap, or just under a second a lap quicker. So Salo in the Toyota, and McNish, of course, is in that bunch of cars behind Salo, along with De La Rosa, Pennies and the two Minardis. So they're sort of either being dragged along in one point, or in other cases being held up by Mika Salo.
Just a little indication of how difficult it is to overtake here. Olivier Panis' qualifying time was about 2 seconds a lap faster than that of the Minardis, and yet he is now stuck behind Mark Webber, unable to really get away from Anthony Davidson. So even if you've got a car advantage of 2 seconds per lap from qualifying, in the race, it's so difficult to pass.
It's always been a tough Grand Prix. I mean, there are places, but you've got to work so hard, and the difficulty is that, for example, in the final turn, you try to get close to the car that you're intending to overtake. You have to judge it literally to within a millimetre, because if you go too far, you'll lose out the front downforce. You'll have to maybe back off, and if you're too far back, well, you might be able to get a run out of the corner, but you haven't got enough straight left to get alongside, and to pass into turn one, believe me, you must be alongside. To try and do it from behind and take a big punt down the inside inevitably ends in contact, and usually both cars suffer as a result.
Ralf Schumacher in a lonely third, Fisichella fourth, and Massa in fifth place, all running pretty much their own races in these early stages of the Grand Prix. And the two Ferraris are closest really up front of the top 5. Barrichello only having 0.8 of a second advantage over Michael Schumacher, who's quite happy to just shadow his every move and stay in contention in this early part of the race. 2 stops normally here at Hungary, so it won't be until we get to about lap 25 that we'd expect to see people coming into the pits. We're coming around to complete lap number 8 at the moment. Still very early days. It's all about establishing that initial gap here.
And then on lap 8, the gap is 8 seconds to Ralf Schumacher in 3rd place. Barrichello, another fastest race lap back now into the low 1-minute 18s. Now, that period when they went into the 1-minute 19s, suddenly the pace has been picked up again. Rubens 18.3 on the last lap, Michael 18.4, Ralph on a 19.3, Fisichella 19.7, and then the rest of the field in the 20s, 21s, and for Anthony Davison, the sole 1-minute 22.
Well, I think the Ferrari team loves this Hungarian circuit. I have to say, they wrapped up the driver's title for Michael Schumacher here last year, and they took a 1-2 finish on that occasion. You have to say they're looking superbly good in these very early stages so far, pulling away from the opposition at quite a rate, as we just pick up the leaders on the back section of the track once again. Still close together. It's Barrichello, the effective number 2 at Ferrari, who leads the 5-time world champion Michael Schumacher.
I think he's pretty effective at being a number 2, and now given an opportunity to race on merit, he's doing a very strong job. We've got Michael Schumacher within, well, it's 0.8 of a second, but it's almost academic because it doesn't really matter where he is. The fact is he's not in the position to offer a challenge, and all you can hope is that Rubens maybe is forced into an unforced error. Of course, that would allow Michael every opportunity to go through, take lead, but I think he's quite happy to stay here and let it all pan out once they get into the round of pit stops.
Michael dropped back just a little bit more there, about 4/10 on that last lap. I don't quite know why.
From 0.8 to 1.2, so he might just feel, well, I've given them a bit of a chase, a bit of a hurry up, so I'll just drop back and catch my breath. And then, you know, you don't want to get too close. I mean, it causes potential airflow through the radiator ducts. I mean, even it can affect the airflow into the engine. Primarily what it does for me is it's always meant that you've never driven the racetrack in the way that you would like to. You're always having to make minute compromises because of that car ahead of you. So drop back maybe a second, second and a half, take it a couple of laps. Alex Young watching on, I wonder what he's thinking right now. And then have another go and make a run up to the back of the car ahead of you and just rattle his cage a bit more and say, oh, hey, I'm back again.
Pedro de la Rosa in the Jaguar, currently holding on to 16th position, in between Mika Salo and Alan McNish, splitting those 2 Toyotas. But Salo not really able to stay on terms with Takuma Sato, who again is just that little bit further up the road. They qualified close together, Toyota and Jaguar, and there they are running close together. 2 of the major manufacturers, of course, involved in Formula 1. Desperate for a little bit more performance, the 2 of them. Toyota had a great start to the season, but the last few Grand Prix have been difficult for them.
Well, in the meantime, Michael Schumacher didn't take very long. He's got that gap back to a second. He's had another fastest lap, so he's got his 1 lap breath, and he's back on Rubens' case, and suddenly the Ferrari in the lead will find its 2 mirrors are getting filled once again by Michael Schumacher in his Ferrari. That helmet, you know, the best thing Rubens can do is just switch off the mirrors and forget about it, and whatever happens, happens.
Very true. Meanwhile, further back, let me just tell you that Montoya still holding on to 7th place, with Kimi Raikkonen breathing down his neck all the time, and Jarno Trulli not far behind. Coulthard is also in that battle, with Heidfeld a couple of seconds further back in 11th place. All cars are still running, as we've had 10 laps completed here. Nobody has retired, no mechanical misfortunes, and amazingly, no problems on that opening lap. Everybody safely negotiated their way through the first 2 corners. And so everybody clean at the moment, no gravel traps in use. Barrichello and Michael Schumacher, there they are, heading the field here, dominating and looking set to really show everyone else how good this Ferrari is this year. That team of Ross Brawn, Rory Byrne, headed by Jean Todt, of course, who's put all these people together. It has been unbeatable, really, this year. Only beaten twice, of course. Ralf Schumacher taking victory in Malaysia and David Coulthard in Monaco. But they've still got to make it all the way to the finish, and there's some 66
Yeah, man, just looking across the pit lane as we see Michael Schumacher come through turn 2. The Jaguar team are beginning, I don't know why they should be thinking about a pit stop on this. Maybe there was a bit of contact in that first lap, maybe somebody either De La Rosa or Irvine. Remember, Irvine running in 13th place, came from 16th. De La Rosa caught in that battle with Saulo and McNish, and maybe it's been a bit of contact somewhere in that battle, just getting a little bit too close, maybe running over a curb and damaging the wing or one of the turning vanes. But Jaguar is certainly ready, and in fact, just they've also got the refueling rig out in the pit lane as well.
Well, for the moment, Barrichello defending from Michael Schumacher quite comfortably, quite easily, not making any mistakes. Of course, when you've got your team leader and 5-time world champion behind, it can be easy to make a mistake, but let's remember how well David Coulthard did with that same situation in Monaco earlier this season. Even with a car that at times, as the tyres went away a little bit and then came back, was really a lot slower than the Ferrari, Coulthard was able to stay in front. And Barrichello's got to take that same sort of tactic, not to make any mistakes. He doesn't need to drive flat out to stay ahead of Schumacher at this stage of the race. He just needs to avoid making mistakes.
Well, that's the view Kimi Raikkonen's had pretty much all afternoon. That's the back of Montoya's Williams BMW. And with the squirt out of the corners that Montoya's got, it makes his job a little easier. It frustrates Raikkonen, of course, because he may be capable of running quicker than the Colombian, but he can't get the job done at the part of track where he would like to do so. That's here, and you can see Raikkonen, he's still hanging in right behind Montoya all the way. He's not done what Michael Schumacher has done, and even, in fact, further on the field, Olivier Panis did, as he still hasn't got past Mark Webber. You know, there's a point at which you say, well, I'll drop back, just catch my breath, think about it, give the tyres, give the car a little bit of a break, and then begin that process, pick up the pace. Montoya might think, well, he's got a problem, or then when you come back in his mirrors, it might cause him to start to think too much about the car behind him.
Riding on board now with De La Rosa. We've got a great view over his left shoulder. This is the view of the Hungaroring. Let's just watch him as he chases after Mika Salo.
Looks awfully easy when you see it from that position, doesn't it? I mean, you can't imagine the physical discomfort, the physical loads that the driver goes through here, braking into turn 6, all the way down to first gear from about 140 miles an hour.
Yes, indeed, and that body taking a pounding throughout the race. Concentration absolutely total. And very easy to get suckered into making a mistake if the guy in front does, of course. When you're into the rhythm, into the swing, lap after lap, you're tending to focus on that car ahead. And it takes for him to brake a little late. Suddenly you've done the same thing, and you both make a mistake. So instead of taking advantage of an opportunity, quite often you end up making the same mistake as the guy in front. Well, Rubens Barrichello currently in control here, managing to maintain that advantage, 1.3 seconds over Michael. It's not really a significant advantage, but it keeps him in front, and that's what counts.
Yes, we saw that gap, a 1.2 second gap a few laps ago, and that then immediately was run down to, again, under the second, so I'm presuming that the same scenario is being played out, because the lap times, Rubens staying fairly constant, 1:18.3s. Michael dropped back to a 1:18.9 there. We see Schumacher into turn 13. Well, it's just a question of not pushing the car, not abusing the car, principally saving it, keeping the temperatures in check. Of course, these engines, while they run at very high temperatures, if they go beyond a certain point, it can impair on the engine's reliability. We've seen that last year, particularly with the BMW, how temperature sensitive it is. So there are preset warning lights on board the car. That will be seen from the ship-to-shore telemetry as well in the garage, and if there was a problem, then the team would tell Michael, just take it easy, drop back a little bit, let some more air get through those air intakes on the other side of where the driver sits.
A little bit of correction required for Montoya out of that last corner as he comes around to complete lap number 14, and he still has Kimi Raikkonen just behind him. There's Jarno Trulli with the pressure still being applied by David Coulthard in the second McLaren. Not a lot he can do at this stage, and probably not worth risking anything too much yet. The first round of pit stops could well shuffle the order around. The pressure will be put on the teams at that stage, and the mechanics will do their best to get the cars out as quickly as possible. And not only that, a lot of it will depend on how much fuel each team decides to put in the car at that first stop. Last year, we saw Coulthard go ahead of Barrichello at the first round of stops. The situation was reversed. On the second round of stops, Barrichello came back out ahead of Coulthard.
Yes, if you shortchange a car on the first pit stop, then you're going to have to pay it back when you come to your second stop. But of course, it depends how much you started with in the first place, and some cars, particularly McLaren, have got the capacity, the tank capacity, to hold enough fuel to easily do a one-stop race. In fact, probably go 2/3 race distance at the speed this race is run at. So that allows them an enormous amount of choice and flexibility. But of course, it's all compromised by starting much further down the grid. But nevertheless, David Coulthard running in that 10th place behind Jarno Trulli. Could run quicker, but can't get past. Kimi Raikkonen caught behind Montoya, could go quicker, but can't get past. Ron Dennis just said a moment ago that, well, we're not happy about the situation, but we're also into conservation, looking after the tyres. We think that when the pit stops come, we're going to be in very good shape, and they will very carefully monitor the field and who is where, and at what point do they want to bring one of their two cars in to make sure that when they go back out again, that they can make the pass on Montoya or on Trulli during that pit stop.
Yes, this Grand Prix is one perhaps where the team has an even greater influence during the race than at some of the other Grand Prix, where the driver can make more difference. Here, once you're stuck into the train like this, it could well be the team that gets you out of a situation by calling the stop at a good time and deciding how much fuel to put in the car. Look at the slow motion pictures here. The Renault working hard over the curbs, everybody tending to use the curbs quite firmly up there at that section of track. And Jenson Button still holding on to 6th place, chased by Montoya and Kimi Raikkonen right behind. All three cars, of course, on the Michelin tyre. And there again, also on the Michelins, is Jarno Trulli, same with David Coulthard right behind. So that little group all battling over 6th position at the moment. Remember, it's Felipe Massa holding on to 5th place. Our top 4 still the same: Barrichello, Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher and Giancarlo Fisichella.
Well, there's the train of cars. Jenson Button heading up Montoya, but in fact Montoya not really in contact with Button, but Kimi Raikkonen still not prepared to give up any ground whatsoever. He's not prepared to sit back and maybe drop back that little bit that we've seen Michael Schumacher do. The gap again, back to 0.8 of a second. Michael just catching another little breath and again charges up towards the rear of Barrichello's Ferrari. The reality is that these two, even though they might feel that they're in a motor race, are not going to have enough advantage over one another to get into a real eyeball-to-eyeball race. And again, it's going to come down to how the pit stops pan out, who does the best lap in and who will do the best lap out. That's where this lead of this Grand Prix will be won or lost by Ferrari.
So Barrichello comes across the line. That's 17 laps completed. And we're now about 8, 9, 10 laps perhaps away from the normal first round of pit stops, so gradually counting their way down to that. And Michael Schumacher making sure that he stays very much in touch with Barrichello ahead. Their lead over Ralf Schumacher has now opened up to some 11.6 seconds. So Ralf not able to lap at the same pace, although the last couple of laps he has been more or less on the same pace as the Ferrari.
I think it's just been just watching the lap times over the last couple of laps. Suddenly they've seen Ralf Schumacher drop from the 119s he was running in into the middle 118s, and both Ferraris now lapping pretty much at the same speed. Now that's, I think, relevant because Ferrari tyre performance appears to be, well, it's been constant pretty much from the start, whereas with Michelin and Ralf Schumacher it's taken a little bit of time for him to get down. Now that may be also indicative of the amount of fuel that Ralf has got on board, and he may well have started with more fuel relative to the two Ferraris, and it's only now that that weight is dissipated that he's able to really make use of the tyre, and he's doing so very effectively indeed.
Yeah, so some good laps coming here, and another good for second sector time for Ralf Schumacher. He is pushing very hard. He has not settled down here in third, despite the fact that the two Ferraris have got away. The Ferrari's just crossing the line now. They've both lapped in the 1 minute 18.5 second bracket. Let's see what this lap is from Ralf.
But just watching that car come through those two corners, lap time 1:18.5, that's his best personal lap. But just watching the way Ralf could get the Williams into this corner here, turn 13, and then into the turn 14. The car, to me, on that onboard camera shot, looked like it was working very well indeed, and that is confirmed by the lap time that we've just seen from Ralf Schumacher. Whereas Giancarlo Fisichella, he's done a personal best, a 1:19.3, but that is some 7/10 of a second slower than now Ralf Schumacher is lapping at, and Ralf is going to very, very gradually stop that gap that the Ferrari were opening between the two Ferraris and the Williams. It's now stalled out at 11.5 seconds, and we're going to watch this very carefully to see whether the gap from Michael to Ralf, which is 10.5 seconds, does reduce.
Right on board with Raikkonen. Just look at the view from the front wing here as he heads up around the back part. This is turn number 5, up towards the chicane. 145, hard on the brakes once again, down to around 55 miles an hour into the first part. Hard on the power. Build up the speed, 125 miles an hour into the left-hander, third gear. Little bit of an ease on the throttle through the right-hander, and then building up the pace once again. Ron Dennis may be frustrated, but They have to be patient at this stage in the race, and he knows that better than anybody. Raikkonen still may have an opportunity to score some points here this afternoon.
Well, I was looking at that gap, it's up to 10.7 seconds, so Ferrari responding, Barrichello on a 18.3, Michael on an 18.2, but nonetheless, Williams have stopped that hemorrhage. The Ferrari lead isn't effectively increasing, and very shortly we'll be coming into traffic because Anthony Davidson some 66 seconds behind Rubens Barrichello, and within the next 5 or so laps we should see the young British driver being lapped for the first time by the 2 lead Ferraris, and depending how Anthony deals with that traffic, hopefully he'll be aware of it. I'm sure he'll be talked to by the team. They've really done a great job for Anthony Davidson from the pits, as well as he's done in the car. But it's always a moment when you come up to lap a newcomer in Formula One, particularly on a track like this, where by going offline, which Anthony Davidson may choose to do, it's not ideal.
Well, David Coulthard still applying the pressure to Jarno Trulli in the second of the Renaults. We've seen some good McLaren versus Renault battles this year, certainly earlier in the season, and then Renault seem to have just lost a little pace in recent races, but they're much more on the pace. But you have to think that Button is holding up the cars that are behind him, because if you look at the times that Ralf Schumacher's doing, he's in the mid 1 minute 18s, Montoya's stuck doing a high minute 1 minute 19, so you would assume therefore that Montoya could go up to a second a lap faster than he is at the moment, if only he could find a way past Jenson Button.
An interesting situation, Ben's going to unfold shortly, because with Jenson Button, he's currently in 6th, but he's got Montoya 0.8 of a second behind him, and Jarno Trulli, who's in 9th, has got David Coulthard behind him by 0.6 of a second. It may be that McLaren and Williams will opt, when that pit lane, that window for refueling and tyres opens up, they may decide to take advantage of it and come in slightly earlier, enable them to get, and there's one of the VARs, as Jacques Villeneuve, and that's the end of his race this afternoon. That was a fairly quick pull-off just at the end of pit straight, just at the literally pit lane exit, so we assume that's been a Honda-related issue. He didn't see anything, no oil or smoke or something coming from the back. There was a bit of a line diagonally across. I don't know if that's a tyre marker or that's an oil or liquid mark. Anyway, disappointment yet again for BAR that one of the 2 cars is already out, and Olivier Panis, who really had hoped for a much better race, started in 12th, still stuck behind Mark Webber. He will now, of course, be 18th after teammate Villeneuve's retirement.
Well, he becomes our first retirement in the Hungarian Grand Prix, and that's his 3rd non-finish in a row, I'm afraid. Germany and Manicourt, much the same story.
Oh, a bit of kicking in the dust. That was Montoya, yes. I'm not sure if Raikkonen or Montoya kicked the dust, but watch Raikkonen. Is he going to dive? No, he was looking at it. In the meantime, Ralf Schumacher's got a personal fastest lap, and again, he's maintaining that 10.5 second gap to his brother, 11.5 to the race leader.
Massa still running in 5th place, remember. There comes Montoya versus Raikkonen, and it does look as though Raikkonen is capable of lapping more quickly, and Montoya perhaps struggling for grip just a little bit.
Yes,
Raikkonen now beginning to attack. He's trying to go around the outside at turn 2. Raikkonen trying to make the move, and Montoya versus Raikkonen. We saw side by side.
Oh, what a pass. What a courageous pass. We saw this in Hockenheim 2 weeks ago. They went side by side. Has that well, I don't want to say what he might have, when that was courage of a magnitude that only a Finn, I'm sure, could ever imagine. And he took Montoya to the ragged edge. They went side by side out of turn 2, with Raikkonen on the outside and put him on the inside for turn 3. Montoya did not concede, but he was forced to run wide, went over the gravel, and Montoya has lost out not only to Raikkonen. We'll wait to see how that all unfolds, but there is Juan Pablo Montoya. Now will Williams think about bringing in Montoya?
Well, that was pretty dramatic stuff, and Raikkonen really on the attack there. It all started with Montoya's mistake. He's definitely losing grip.
He lost a bit of bodywork, yes.
Yeah,
some of the deflectors around behind the front wing. Williams don't run barge boards per se. They've got turning vanes behind the front wings, and that was part of what I think came off. There we see turn 2. Look at Raikkonen round the outside. He's got the grip. Then Montoya's got the squirt, but Raikkonen on the inside, and he stays there. Montoya gives him working room. 2 guys have raced together side by side. Both did a very good job, and then more bodywork comes off the front of Montoya. He's got to come in. Montoya's in the pits. He's going to get a nose change. He's going to get a fresh set of rubber, and he's going to be refueled, and he'll probably get a major lecture as well.
Well, it's just not working out for Montoya today. A dreadful start. dropping down the order. They're ripping bits off the car. It's going to handle abysmally now, with various parts missing those deflectors off the front of the car, and this is going to be an awfully long afternoon if the car remains reliable for Montoya. No real chance of scoring points. Second place in the Drivers' Championship going out of the question, and he rejoins just behind Davidson and just ahead of race leader Barrichello.
I mean, that is not much fun for Juan Pablo Montoya. Well, Anthony Davidson has done the decent thing and let Montoya go. That was, I think, pretty sensible of him. He's now got Rubens Barrichello and Michael Schumacher about to do the same thing. And Anthony Davidson, there he pulls over to the right of the track, lets the two Ferraris go through. Certainly one gets through, Michael will go through. Very cautious, Michael being careful, because he had to go offline into turn 4. Anthony was on the racing line, he was off, he was giving room for the Ferrari to go through, but Michael had to go in the dirtier part of the track. He didn't want to take a risk. Nonetheless, in that first sector, he's got the fastest of anybody, so it didn't hurt him too much.
Animation down there at Williams, isn't there? Patrick Head speaking to Sam Michael.
Yes, that is not a happy Patrick Head at all. They took off further bits of the turning vanes, the bodywork that is behind the wing, that deflects the air around the side of the car, that leads into the air boxes. Wow. So I think a nose change will be inevitable for Montoya. He's going to have a bunch of understeer unless they're able to put front wing on to compensate for that they would have lost from those deflecting vanes being ripped away from the car.
Well, all chances really over, and Irvine pulling off to halt here in the Jaguar. We've lost to Jacques Villeneuve, now we've lost Eddie Irvine, and suddenly the retirements are coming as we're into the 25th lap of this Grand Prix.
And that's just into turn 2. Eddie had a problem on the exit of 1, and he just coasted down into that escape road. The car was pushed safely away, and Eddie Irvine's race is over. There we got Michael now trapped behind Juan Pablo Montoya. Now he'll get a blue flag. Juan Pablo pulls over. He's done, again, absolutely the correct thing. Michael gets past slightly earlier. Oh, and he goes off the ground. Look, off understeer. That's the problem. Now, also maybe lack of front end. He should have changed the nose. Maybe the team weren't ready for it. They didn't have a nose prepared. They will be working flat out to get a new nose for Montoya. In the meantime, we can tell you that the Minardi team are also preparing for a pit stop for one of their two cars, be it Mark Webber, who's running a very fine 16th, or Anthony Davidson down at 19th.
Yep, well, we'll wait and see. The first round of pit stops coming up pretty soon now as we get to the 1/3 distance mark in this Grand Prix, and therefore we'll expect to see most of the two stoppers, and nearly everybody will be making two stops throughout this Grand Prix. So it'll be a busy time in the pits coming up soon, and it could see quite a few changes.
Kimi Raikkonen on the case of Jenson Button, and there's going to be a hard workout for Button. If he had seen what Raikkonen did to Montoya, he would probably not want to get involved in an eyeball wheel-to-wheel race, because the Finn is fired up. He is driving that McLaren absolutely on the edge. He's not thinking about conserving tyres, he's not thinking about anything. All he is doing is thinking about getting into the points, and if he gets Button, he will be in the points.
This is another very impressive drive from Kimi Raikkonen, isn't it? Great first lap, good battle with Montoya. Into the pits has come Anthony Davidson, then his first pit stop in anger in a Formula One car. It's taking a while to get the fuel on board, and eventually he gets away. But again, no mistakes, no stalling of the engine, and away he goes.
And that was on lap 24, because in fact he'd done 25 laps with the race leader. But Raikkonen just lasering in on the back of Jenson Button as they come down this short straight. There you see the advantage in horsepower that the Mercedes engine has over the Renault. Equal tyre choice, not much to give and take. Jenson, very good torque with the Renault engine. Easy engine to drive, helps the driver, doesn't destabilise the car. Sometimes the engine's very peaky or not torquey in hard work, but watch Raikkonen. You can just imagine what's going through his mind. He's absolutely wired like I've never seen him.
Yeah, fired up and confident after that move worked on Montoya, I'm sure. And look at Button's car sliding, but then so does Raikkonen's car. Losing a little bit of downforce, of course, in the slipstream of that Renault. And you can just see it in the middle of the corners, how sometimes it just gets into a bit of a slide. But Button also perhaps scrabbling for grip a little. And as they approach their first round of pit stops, of course, the tyres perhaps not at their very best now. And that's an opportunity for Raikkonen to take advantage.
I'm just watching Jenson there, a little bit of understeer from the Renault through turn 11 into 12, and also coming through 9 and 10, and noticing that Jenson looked to be having to work fairly hard. Look at that again, Raikkonen into 13, just drills the McLaren right under the rear wing of the Renault, as David Coulthard now giving Jarno Trulli a touch of the same treatment. The difficulty is here in turn 14, you can afford to get so close, but you can never get too close, otherwise you lose the downforce. Good job, Felipe Massa in 5th place, as Sauber team are also preparing to bring either Massa or Nick Heidfeld, who's more disappointing so far this afternoon, down in 10th place in.
Yes, well, Heidfeld, of course, just didn't get away well at the start, so that's why he's down in 10th place. But Massa got away well, and he's managed to take advantage of it. He's running in a fairly lonely 5th. He's 6 seconds behind Vizcaya, but a full 7 seconds ahead of Jenson Button. And they're showing the performance advantage of Sauber just a little bit. And I wonder if it is going to be Massa that comes in. We've got McNish coming into the pits, and we've got Mark Webber also coming into the pits. So crucial battle is about to take place in the pit lane as Jenson Button and Kimi Räikkönen continue their battle on track. Let me tell you, in the pits, Alan McNish versus Mark Webber is a battle for position, and Toyota and Minardi will be hoping to get their man out ahead.
Well, it looks like Toyota have got the job done. So McNish gets out, and Webber's very, very slow. He also gets caught by the Toyota team, who are not quick enough to get all their equipment in. So Webber lost maybe a second and a half trying to get out and around and manoeuvre. I mean, Toyota maybe slightly playing some advantage home rule on that one.
Well, at the moment, this was that pit stop indeed, and Webber
slid into the. That was a bit marginal. Clipped that wheel. Look at that wheel, right rear. He clipped it on the way in. Already the Toyota team are getting the jacks under the car. Here they come in. This is as they come in. So there's that incident from another view. Watch the right. Look, clips the wheel, hits the mechanics. Some of those guys will have sore shins. And there, in fact, we see it's to be a hand injury, possibly water being poured on a wrist. A thumb getting a right old rattle. And the guys, they're tough guys. They've got adrenaline flowing. It may not hurt now, but sadly it probably will be a bit more painful during the evening.
De La Rosa in the Jaguar as well, as the two Ferraris continue on their way. They are now 12.8 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher, but Ralf has managed to maintain that gap, although very quick lap there from Michael Schumacher, a 1 minute 17.5.
Yeah, the gap was hovering around the 10.5 seconds for quite a number of laps with ebb up and down. Now, in the last few laps, the two Ferraris have upped their pace, running in the consistent 1:18.5 to 18.8. Ralf had a slow lap, 18.6, and that was probably getting past back markers, so he has suffered even further from that. That's possibly why that 12.8 second gap to Michael Schumacher and 13.6 second gap to Rubens Barrichello.
Montoya's been skating around the outside of the track again, up at turn number 5. I think he got away with it, rejoined, so not too many disasters for him. But in fact, he's just watching on the onboard. He's just been passed as well. So that was by his teammate Ralf Schumacher as Mika Salo. Oh, Salo gets in a big slide right in front of race leader Barrichello.
He's just going to. Well, he's trying to get out of the way in one hand, but he's going in the pits. So he took the opportunity just to try and stay ahead as much as possible of the two Ferraris. And we assume that was a scheduled stop. I don't see anybody from the Toyota team. We haven't seen it on any of our other cameras. So we assume that Toyota is ready. Here he comes. It's a long way down the pit lane. Toyota at the very end of the pit lane. Easy access to the circuit when they rejoin, but it seems interminable all the way down. Toyota is ready. And we now wait to see what Giancarlo Fisichella or Takuma Sato is going to do. Sato running in 11th place, some 4 seconds behind Nick Heidfeld, a long way ahead of Olivier Panis, who's now 1 lap down in 12th place.
Still enjoying this tussle between Jenson Button and Kimi Räikkönen, and it's been going lap after lap now after Räikkönen managed to get past Montoya, and it will come down to the pit stops. McLaren versus Renault, when they make their stops, is going to be crucial, and another crucial pit stop coming up. Here's Fisichella from 4th place.
Great drive by Fisichella so far this afternoon, and he managed to get enough clear air between Felipe Massa in 5th and himself, and a good stop, 8.3 seconds for Jordan. And the combination of the revised Honda engine, Jordan, Giancarlo Fisichella, really strong here this weekend.
Put on new rears and scrubbed front tyres on that car, apparently. So using the Bridgestone tyre, but...
It's got the arrow. It's got the arrow. It will be 43 kilos.
And there we're just listening into a little bit of team radio as Fisichella rejoins the track. New fastest lap from Barrichello, 1:17.1. Heading down towards lap record territory, but we're still about a half a second away from it at this stage. Barrichello versus Schumacher, and the gap has stayed almost identical throughout this opening stint. It's back down to 0.8 of a second.
There's the fastest lap, 1:17.1. Contrast that to what we saw last year from Mika Häkkinen. He had fastest lap on lap 51, 1:16.723. So still a little bit of a way to go. And Mika, remember, absolutely wired up here last year. It wasn't always the case at every Grand Prix as he was working towards his so-called seminar. Well, it was some joke that it was always going to be retirement. Mika now enjoying the fruits of that retirement and can relax, probably for about the first time in his life outside of the time when he was, well, let's say before he could walk. Here we see Ferrari, which will it be? Rubens Barrichello, Michael Schumacher, and this is a very late call. Ferrari's looking on the, yes, 30-quarter, we're coming up to turn 13, there it is, Michael Schumacher, through 13, is it Barrichello? It's Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, it's Schumacher coming in, and it looks like he's going to put on scrubbed tyres. Looking, I just had a quick look, and it doesn't look as though he's got new tyres all round, at least. We'll have a check as he puts them on and comes in. So Barrichello now has to really get on with it. And he knows.
He had the fastest race lap, 1:16.891, 10th of a second of Häkkönen's lap last year. Now Michael Schumacher knows that when he goes back out on those new tyres, it'll depend where he goes out. 8.4 seconds is the traffic. Well, Fisichella's just come out. He's got a Williams coming down. He's a long way down. He's got a long traffic. Who's coming down? Is that a Williams, a McLaren?
That's Montoya. It's Montoya heading down the. Of course, he's a long way back. But Michael Schumacher takes a while to get down the pit lane, but here he is.
But he'll catch up to Montoya very quickly. Montoya was good in letting Michael Schumacher through previously. I'm sure he'll be equally generous this time. Barrichello, oh, and his spin button is spun at turn 13. And that is all over Red Rover for the Brit. He's in the gravel and he will not get out of there.
Oh, that is such a disappointment. He was doing well, holding off Kimi Räikkönen.
Pressure.
Let's listen to the radio, see if he...
Boys, sorry about that. It's getting very, very oversteering on braking and it's got a bit too much. Out of it, sorry boys.
Well, he actually put a wheel on the grass there. When they look at the replay, they'll see it was oversteering under braking because he had a wheel on the grass. Let's take another look at this.
Yeah, he just clipped, I mean, literally, but I think also he was saying, there, look at that rear tyre, that right rear, there's not an awful lot of tread left there. We saw earlier on the onboard shot of Räikkönen as Barrichello comes in for that. This is the battle for who will win this Grand Prix, that's what we believe anyway. 8.4 seconds for Michael Schumacher. Let's look at 8.79. Well, if Michael gets to that blinding first lap, is it going to be close or is it going to be close?
Let's take a look then. Michael Schumacher's heading around that top corner at the moment, heading down the straight. He's got a tow from Montoya.
Going to be close. There it is. Montoya gets through. Michael comes through. He's got the momentum. Can he sweep by? He's going to have a look at it. Rubens blocks him, but it's on the exit of one. Will Michael have a look down into two? No, he's not going to bother.
So he does not make it through. Montoya gets out of the way of both of them, and it's still the situation as before the stop. Rubens Barrichello, who did a fantastic job there on that clear lap that he had to put in a quick enough lap to hold off Michael Schumacher, and not many people can do that when Michael Schumacher's got the bit between his teeth.
Well, Schumacher running in second place. That's according to our timing and scoring, but Williams already, and we assume this is going to be a stop for Ralf Schumacher, because in reality, as Nick Heidfeld comes in, Juan Pablo Montoya is well and truly out of this race. He did get a service when he came in. They should have put a news on that car. They should have taken the time, but well, in the pressure of the situation, that's what happens. These decisions are made. They're split-second decisions, and when you're the one that's responsible for it, you have no choice.
Just having a look at the timing screen, John, and David Coulthard has just set the fastest first sector time of anybody in this entire race so far, so the McLaren can go quickly when it's got clean air.
And that's because Jarno Trulli has come into the pits. He's had a service, so now it's Coulthard in fifth, Räikkönen in fourth. Ralf is in. Both the McLarens are staying out. We told you about that extra large fuel tank that they have. Now they may try, are they going to go and do a one stop, or are they just going to go very late and then make a quick stop and then make a final splash and dash and try and gain 7.6 seconds? That's quicker than brother Michael by almost 0.8 of a second. It's almost 2 seconds quicker than that for Rubens Barrichello. Well, it's not going to give him position, it's going to get him closer once again into contact with the two Ferraris.
Well, it's a good battle that's going on further behind, and the two McLarens are now only separated by a couple of seconds as they chase. And Räikkönen's now just put in the fastest final sector time. The McLarens are flying.
McLaren's 1:17.1 for Räikkönen, 1:17.2 for David Coulthard, and that's just about the second and third quickest laps of the race outside of the Barrichello's 1:16.8.
Well, you said earlier, John, we had to watch McLaren when they were back was to the wall. It was after qualifying, but now they've got some clear air. The McLarens really are going quickly. This was Ralf Schumacher rejoining.
Was that a clip of that white line again? I'll be looking at that to see whether Ralf transgressed or not. It was a very close call. Didn't look like it when we saw it, but I think if you had analysed it and had a really close look at it, it's certainly worthy of another look, and I just wonder if anybody in the pit lane has also had that same thought. somebody dressed in red with a bit of white and red on them, and well, it could be them.
Olivier Panis is currently in the pits at the moment, and seeing if he can move up the order after that dreadful first lap. He's got away safely, won't make a huge amount of difference. Now, what interests me really is Felipe Massa's position. Remember, he was running 5th before the pit stop started, but the McLarens will be in touch with Massa. They're going to be close to him when they come back out.
McLarens are getting ready. Here they are, they're already preparing. So one of the two McLarens will be here. It is coming in. So as David Coulthard comes in, and this is lap 34.
This is going to be very interesting. Felipe Massa's position in the Sauber will be under threat from both McLarens, and also Raikkonen versus Coulthard is going to be quite a tussle.
And Raikkonen once again in that final sector of the lap, fastest car on the racetrack. Raikkonen some 7.2 seconds behind Ralf Schumacher. Remember, Raikkonen has not made a pit stop. Coulthard just come out 8 seconds for the Scot.
Massa's gone through safely, so he retains that position. Here comes Coulthard. The question is whether Raikkonen, when he makes his stop, will come out ahead of Coulthard and that little closer to Massa. Massa might come under threat in the second sector of this race as Jarno Trulli continues around. And yes, he has stopped, so Raikkonen there, we are on board. He is the only one of the front runners now not to have stopped.
And Raikkonen using as much of the clear air as possible. He's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him. That's Mark Webber, we believe, and yes, it is. So he goes through, sweeps through into turn 12. Raikkonen, McLaren ready for him. He will be in at the end of this lap. He's just got to get around turn 13, which he does. So watch Raikkonen, he dives in. He'll probably make a very late cut into the pit lane. There it is. Oh, and he keeps it. Look, right on the limit. Talk about being on the racetrack. It's as quick round this corner into the pitch. Then the white line, get the speed down, 80 kilometers per hour. Rolls down. Second garage in the pit lane. Remember, Ferrari very early in the pit lane. Then there's the gap. Now it's McLaren. 8 seconds for David Coulthard. What can they do for Kimi Raikkonen?
Fisichella coming around that top corner. He is coming back up into 4th position here with the pit stops being made. But then Raikkonen sent on his way 9.1 seconds. And look in the background. Keep an eye out for Felipe Massa. Massa's still going well. He's not that far behind Fisichella. And there comes Raikkonen. Will he get out in front of Coulthard? Yes, he will.
He does, but he's just got to figure his way around. Minardi, so Coulthard and Raikkonen, amazing. Starting together on the grid in 10th and 11th, Coulthard 10th, Raikkonen 12th. Davison gets out of the way, does a good job. Now he's got David Coulthard behind him. He doesn't want to go on the dirty stuff too much. He wants to try and keep on the clean bit of puff of smoke on the gear change, or was that just the bottom of the car bottoming out?
So the main change that has occurred here with these pit stops is the loss of one Renault and the other Renault being pushed behind both McLarens. That's really the key here. The Renaults were holding up the McLarens in the earlier sector of this race. Now they've got a chance to go after Felipe Massa and perhaps Giancarlo Fisichella. Should be fun in this next part.
David Coulthard, he loves his motor racing, and that is really where his strength probably is at his greatest. Kimi Raikkonen, of course, one of those young drivers who knows nothing about experience, just gets in, drives the car, is naturally fast, can drive a car that's difficult. That's always been a problem I think David has suffered from. If the car doesn't suit his particular needs, he can't deliver. But come the race, then he is in his own element, and very, very strong indeed.
So let's just watch them as they come around this. We'll see what sort of lap times they are able to achieve. And interestingly, Coulthard was slightly quicker on his pit stop lap, if you like, than Kimi Raikkonen, only by a fraction of a second. A 1:40 for the entire length of time. It was 1:39 for Coulthard. This was the replay of Kimi Raikkonen rejoining. Again, keeping an eye on him coming out of the pits there. And another look on the white line.
Watch the white line, this is the issue. Well, he went across the white line, I would say, before he got to the serrated line. And whether that will be adjudged to have been a drive-through penalty, that's up to the race director. He'll pass that down to the stewards. They'll examine the evidence and then make their decision. The teams will be informed via email, and if that is the case where he went over that white line, he will then be advised in the next 3 laps to come in and make a drive-through penalty.
So up front, the situation is the same as we had before. Barrichello leading from Michael Schumacher by just over a second, and they're lapping just inside the 1:17 bracket currently, as Ralf Schumacher holds on to 3rd place in the 1:19. So again, it's in the early part of the stint that the Ferraris seem to have such an advantage. Again, they're much, much quicker at this point in the race than the cars behind them. And we'll just have to see what sort of lap times the two McLarens can achieve. A 1:18 there from both McLarens, about a second a lap faster than Massa ahead of them.
Ben, I think it may be slightly academic because I was just watching on the Sky Channel, that's button 1 on your receiver, that Kimi Räikkönen, you know, we've looked at it, examined it, it's very, very close that he may have gone over just at the very end of that white line. He may have had a wheel on the racetrack before he should have done. Now we're going to keep an eye on the other information screens that we have to see whether that is going to be an issue for Kimi Räikkönen, and if it is, well, it'll be a huge disappointment because he's driven outstandingly well so far this afternoon in 6th place, 3.5 seconds behind Felipe Massa, who's a further 2.7 seconds behind Giancarlo Fisichella. So a real prospect for a battle for 4th place, because 3rd, 2nd and 1st are really beyond any hope of McLaren getting higher than that.
So this is Montoya and Panis who are battling away here, the two of them battling for 11th place after the problems that Montoya suffered earlier on, losing bits of bodywork after being pushed wide on the track, although he made his mistake earlier on, and that's really what ripped the bits of bodywork off initially up at the fast turn 12, and then of course ran wide when Räikkönen came past him, and now he's trying to keep Olivier Panis behind.
Well, I think it's a miserable afternoon for Juan Pablo Montoya. One must say that incident coming through turn 3, Montoya did give Räikkönen a huge amount of room, and he paid the penalty. That was an error on Montoya's part, and I think that it's one that he will maybe rue when he gets back to the team. The team will say, well, you didn't have to be so generous. But the point is that Räikkönen and Montoya really have worked and raced together. We saw it at Hockenheim, but he got marginally the left front or the left side of the car onto the dust, and of course once he got onto that, this track is so unforgiving that you just get dragged off, and that's what happened to Montoya.
Eddie Irvine in fairly heated discussion there with Niki Lauda, as up front the two Ferraris still storming away from everyone else. Their advantage over Ralf Schumacher now 22.6 seconds from Barrichello to Ralf, 21 seconds from Michael back to his brother, so a very big advantage indeed. A 1:18.2 from Barrichello on that last lap, and Michael a little quicker, so he closed up the gap somewhat again. A 1:18.3 from Ralf, so he's getting back up to speed again.
But what's interesting is that once the first round of pit stops were sorted out, prior to coming in, Ralf Schumacher, I think, was about 13 seconds behind his brother and a further second and a bit behind. Now the gap has jumped to 21 seconds to Michael and 22.5 seconds to Raymond Barrichello as Mark Webber clobbers the curb at turn 12.
Yeah, makes a little bit of a mistake there, Webber, but he still survives. He's running down in 16th place as David Coulthard continues on his chase of Räikkönen, and these two guys are only 2 seconds, well, Räikkönen only 2 seconds behind Felipe Massa, and they are lapping a little quicker. Räikkönen's last lap a 1:18.9, Coulthard quicker than that, a 1:18.3, with Massa doing a 1:19.3. Good opportunity to close up to the Sauber.
And again, David Coulthard running right in the middle of the lap times of the first 3 cars, but of course there's some 54 seconds behind race leader, and well, all that damage was done in qualifying. McLaren coming good in the race as I anticipated that they would. It's been in a sense a habit or tradition with the team when they don't get a tyre that suits the car, particularly for qualifying, it will not perform to its potential, but in the race, with the additional weight of fuel and the energy that goes with it, the tyre and car come alive, and we've seen 2 strong race from Räikkönen and David Coulthard, 6th and 7th.
Toyota versus Jaguar here. This is Salo ahead of De La Rosa, 13th and 14th. 15th still is Alan McNish, 16th is Mark Webber, and 17th still running. Our last runner at the moment is Anthony Davidson. Just 3 cars out of this Grand Prix so far, with 40 out of the 77 laps completed. So we're a little bit over the half distance mark. The cars out are Jacques Villeneuve, Eddie Irvine, and of course Jenson Button, who spun off when he was involved in that battle with Kimi Räikkönen.
It's fair thought for Anthony Davidson. We've talked a lot about him this weekend. He's done up to this moment a great job, but he's some 40 seconds now behind his teammate, and his nickname in the test team at BAR is Shrimp, and I tell you what, he must be feeling a bit potted by now.
It must be tough out there for him. It is hot, it is hard work around the Hungaroring, and he's experiencing what it's like to drive a Grand Prix distance rather than testing, where they tend to do several runs. Sometimes they'll do long runs at a test, but here a full Grand Prix distance is what he's trying to achieve. Still the 2 Ferraris up front.
Yes, Ben, we saw Eddie Irvine in fairly animated conversation on the pit wall with Niki Lauda, and it appears that just all the electronics shut down, and that was the cause for Eddie Irvine's retirement, a disappointment once again. for the Ulsterman, who really, his future at Jaguar is still uncertain. His future as a Formula 1 driver is uncertain. He's even suggested that if an opportunity to become a test driver in a top team like Ferrari, well, he would grab it as quickly as he can say his name.
Well, there we saw a quick glimpse of Fisichella coming through in fourth, and you know, Massa's only 2.8 seconds behind Fisichella, and look how much closer the McLarens are to the back of the Sauber.
Well, I'm not surprised, because Felipe Massa has been running down gradually Giancarlo Fisichella, but more critically, the two McLarens have been picking up pace. They're running very much at the pace of the three lead cars. In fact, right now, Ralph's dropped off to a 120 again, probably due to traffic, whereas Felipe Massa and Fisichella running in the low 1 minute 19s, some 0.4 to half a second a lap slower than the third and fourth place.
Yes, and those times that Raikkonen and Coulthard are setting, as you say, very similar to the times being set by Barrichello and Michael up front. So it does show that the McLaren's race pace is much more as we would expect. We've seen this earlier on this year, where particularly at the Nürburgring, the car was brilliant in the race itself. They qualified poorly here, but the car is working well in race conditions.
Well, we haven't seen very much of them so far in this race, but another newcomer to the Hungarian, Takuma Sato, running in 10th and running, I would say, a reasonably lonely race. Nobody behind him, no one to challenge in front. Nonetheless, he is driving his little Japanese heart out. He's running in the middle 1 minute 18s as well. Patrick Head once again over to remonstrate with the pit wall. Well, that is certainly not a happy camper.
No, they seem to be, I wonder what's going on there. Ralph, of course, still running in a good solid third place. He's 23 seconds behind the leading Ferraris, but he has a very healthy advantage himself over Fisichella, some 26 seconds back to the Jordan. So it's lonely time, but if he can keep the laps going, this is where the championship battle and how it would change. If they finish in these places, he would tie with teammate Montoya for third, because Barrichello would come up into second clear on 45 points in the championship. That is, of course, if Barrichello goes on to take the victory.
Yes, and I wonder what was going on in the Williams pit. I mean, other than the fact that Ralph is dropping away, and there's no apparent reason. On that last lap, Ralph had the quickest lap of the entire field, so the gap 23.2 has reduced marginally, but of course it was as low as 10.5 seconds to Michael Schumacher, and it was really, we saw at that time, dropping by the lap.
So Michael Schumacher still keeping very much in touch with Rubens Barrichello. It was only 0.6 of a second the gap the last time they came around, and Michael hasn't had to follow a car this closely for this long for some while, but Barrichello with the advantage. Might have dropped back just a little bit on this lap. It could be all about the final pit stop between these two Ferraris, and that's surely where the battle will be decided. Still a little way away from that second pit stop.
Yeah, Michael did drop back. It was 0.6. He dropped a second lap. I don't know why he should have done that in one lap. I mean, to drop a second in one lap is an awful lot of time. Barrichello, of course, coming up to put a lap on Takuma Sato, who is the last of the on-lap runners in 10th place. So Michael may be thinking, I'll just wait and see what happens with Sato and try and use that to once again run back up to the rear of my teammate. But that gap, in fact, looks like increasing. It's 1.6 seconds. That was what it was going across the line. We have to wait and see until they return back to complete their 45th lap. That's the lap they're on, 33 to go.
Well, still, yes, 33 laps, and so far so good for the two Ferraris. Reliability's been absolutely beautiful throughout the season for Michael. Hasn't been so good for Barrichello, but so far so good for him this time as he stays in front. And there, a good view of some of the rubber that's been shed and left to the side of the track offline. Not too far away from lapping Takuma Sato. And Sato still running in 10th place, as you mentioned earlier on, John. Sato's just set his best mid-sector time, interestingly enough, but he's running consistent laps.
I mean, he's doing a great job. I mean, the young man who's maybe received some criticism unfairly on many occasions, other times justified. I mean, he's just been knocking out little 1 minute 18 second lap. Now, that was his lap on lap 45 was 0.6 of a second quicker than Michael Schumacher's. It was 1/10 of a second faster than Rubens Barrichello. It was 2/10 slower than Ralf Schumacher. And compared to Fisichella, his teammate, doing a 19.1, and Takuma Sato doing an 18.5, that's, well, the best part of half a second there as well. So all credit to Takuma Sato for doing a very good job, very much unnoticed by the cameras. Fortunately, F1 Digital Plus is on the case and is bringing it to you.
Yes, he isn't too close to the car in ahead of him, so there's not much of a battle there, as we're now enjoying. Oh, and off goes one of the McLarens. It's Coulthard. Coulthard has gone wide.
At turn, I think it's turn 11, in fact, Coulthard went off. Well, then maybe it's turn 12. You're looking at the screen, it was turn 12. Now gravel everywhere. David Coulthard, watch again as he comes up. He make the turn and the front end of the car will not bite. Wait and see.
Oh, he
was. What he did was the back end of it. He lost the back end. Well, that was unusual. I thought it was going to be a front end job. So Coulthard, a big wake-up call there. He did very well to keep the car. That signage, of course, up in the air, but it's just to keep it away from the tower. Bales. So he did well. He didn't lose any bodywork either. Well, I mean, talk about a wake-up call. That was lap 46.
That was the same place that Montoya went off earlier and did lose some bodywork. And it did look as though Coulthard may have got away with it, but really spoiled that battle a little bit because he was right behind Raikkonen. But as soon as you get offline here, if you do get offline, then you're on no grip whatsoever. That's Massa versus Raikkonen. That's a tremendous battle. Webber has now got between Raikkonen and Coulthard. Coulthard will quickly get his way past Webber, who's running in 16th.
Yes, and David's got to get his composure, his momentum all gathered up, and once again continue that progress, the charge up towards the tail of his teammate. Kimi Raikkonen focused right on the rear of Felipe Massa's Sauber. Oh, a lock-up. Massa's locked it up into turn 13. This is a chance for teammate. Kimi Raikkonen focused right on the rear of Felipe Massa's Sauber. Oh, a lock-up. Massa's locked it up into turn 13. This is a chance for Raikkonen to try and just get a little bit closer as they come up into turn 14. It's not going to be enough to give him the opportunity to pass down the straight, but it's a signal that Felipe Massa is feeling the heat and pressure from Raikkonen.
Yes, he is, and Massa's got to try and keep his head, keep his cool now as this race continues. Still just 0.6 of a second between them, and Massa himself some 2.7 seconds behind Giancarlo Fisichella. Can't afford to make the mistakes. Really, to a certain extent, Felipe Massa could be battling for his drive at the Sauber team. There's been a lot of talk the fact that Sauber might drop Felipe Massa. They might even bring in someone like Fredson, who's now left Arrows, to try and get a few more points in the championship. But Massa has been one of the stars of this year. Maybe a little erratic, but he has put in some decent race performances, and he's doing it again here. He needs now to keep his head.
Yeah, the most important thing for Felipe Massa is that you can't teach a driver to be fast, but you can teach him to be a racing driver and how to understand to run a Grand Prix. So at least Felipe has got the core ingredient of being a good racing driver, and that's because you're fast.
Yes, there's no question about his speed and his commitment, his bravery, his car control. He's got all of those in good measure. He's got now to develop the patience.
Again.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's not so problematic. We see it from second lap, different angle, and maybe it's just a slightly unloaded wheel, depending on how that car, the suspension set up. But Raikkonen is creeping ever closer to the tail of that Sauber. Felipe Massa under pressure for some considerable time. And maybe he's just, again, ignoring the mirrors, just listening to the team and saying, well, don't worry about it. He can run at your pace, but he can't get past you.
Well, Coulthard's moment a little while ago dropped him back, put him in clear air, and of course that's allowed him to go more quickly over the lap now. He did a 1:18.1 last time round.
And just watching Takuma Sato, still in 10th place. Last lap was just on an 18.6, did an 18.2. So he's closing down to Nick Heidfeld in 9th place in the second of the Saubers.
It is, I have to say, an impressive middle stint, this from Takuma Sato, just looking at the lap times. And of course, Grand Prix teams do look very much, John, at the consistency of drivers throughout the race. It's something that this man, Michael Schumacher, is perhaps supreme on. His lap times throughout a Grand Prix are incredibly consistent. He always seems to be able to just up the pace a fraction when required as well. It's partly the fitness, it's partly the concentration, but Takuma Sato to be putting in those sort of times at this stage in a Grand Prix shows he has that same focus, that same ability to keep the pace.
Yes, he's a very fit young man, and maybe he will become Japan's finest Formula One driver and maybe become Japan's first Grand Prix winner. But in the meantime, these two Ferraris continue majestically on the way in the lead, and really looking from this rearward view of Barrichello's car, it just looks again so easy in the amount of work the drivers are doing. You can hear by the way the throttle pedal is being used. There's no stabbing or jabbing at the pedal. That means the front end of the car works consistently. The balance of the car, front to rear, is just about ideal. And for Rubens Barrichello and Michael Schumacher, they're driving hard, but the car is 100% behind them.
It is. Let's just ride with him a second. Great to hear that Ferrari engine working hard. Looking over the back at Michael Schumacher running in second place. And this is just a demonstration drive from these two, but the battle is still on between them for the race victory.
I think about 5 or 6, maybe more laps ago, I said that these two cars are going to be coming up and lapping Takuma Sato. It's not really happening, and the reason is that Sato is running pretty much at the pace of the two Ferraris. And if and when they do catch up, it will be interesting to see how Rubens Barrichello or Michael Schumacher deal with the young Japanese. Now, he will be obliged to pull over and let them go through, but maybe Barrichello isn't too keen to come into contact with Sato prior to his final stop, because he knows that if he gets close to him, that will lead to Michael's advantage, and rather than doing so, he's just letting everything stay status quo. Jordan's preparing, is this Fisichella or Takuma Sato? I suspect it might be Fisichella.
Well, we shall have to wait and see, and Fisichella's just come past the pit, so it may well be Takuma Sato.
Well, I think you might be right, Ben. It could only be one of the two of them anyway, so as Fisichella goes past, it is Takuma Sato who comes into the pits.
I've had a lot, so that time's really quick. So you're doing a good job, but we're going to keep the momentum up, okay?
And there you can hear the radio, the team telling him he's doing a fine job. Fuel goes on board. Let me tell you that it's a little bit of a slow stop for Sato. It took 11.6 seconds before they got him on his way again.
Yes, I think maybe that was the result of a very, well, slightly less heavy fuel load going in that first stop. Nonetheless, the team are 100% behind him, and they're telling him he's done a good job. We know he's doing a good job. We can see that, as can you at home. If you want to go on to number 5, push the button 5 on your receiver, you can get the information channel and watch what goes on racetrack from a statistic point of view.
David Coulthard then, having made that mistake a little earlier on, has now closed back up to within 1.7 seconds of the battle that's going on ahead, Raikkonen versus Felipe Massa. So it hasn't taken Coulthard long to make up the ground. He's not quite where he was, but he's not far behind, and it's just showed once again that to get into clean air, these two McLarens are capable of lapping faster than Felipe Massa. So what they will have to hope is that they can make a quicker pit stop than the Sauber team in a few laps' time, and that'll enable them to get ahead. Meanwhile, the Minardi of Mark Webber is heading down pit lane, currently running 16th, remember, ahead of teammate Anthony Davidson. Had a little bit of a problematical pit stop last time out. Looks as though he stopped a little more cleanly this time. The crew go to work, and just waiting. There is a problem, I think, down there for Webber. Just looking down in the pit lane, there is a problem for Webber.
Giancarlo Fisichella, he's coming up to put a lap on the Toyota. Of course, there's a battle going on for 4th place, and Fisichella will want to get through as quickly and cleanly as possible, because he will have Felipe Massa all over the back of the Jordan, who in turn has got Kimi Raikkonen. So a battle. There's the Jordan preparing now, and this will be for Giancarlo Fisichella, who's going to come in. This is lap 51. So the Italian and the Toyota also comes in, and of course the Toyota's got to go all the way down the pit lane, and while they're both got to be on the speed limiter button, nevertheless it's frustrating for Fisichella.
Yes, and he's got to be careful, because his advantage over Felipe Massa, only 2.5 seconds, so he can't afford any major problems here. If he gets a clean stop, it shouldn't be a factor, but he'll be looking for no issues. Everything going on safely, is it? Yes, the fuel's still going on board, and a good stop that time. 8.5 seconds. McNish still stationary in pit lane, and Fisichella rejoins the fray. That's the advantage of the Ferraris, though. They are still ahead, despite the fact they haven't made their second stop.
Yes, Fisichella again, rather like Ralf Schumacher we saw on his first pit stop, very close to clipping the end of that white line where you rejoin the circuit. But a good stop for Fisichella, 8.4 seconds. And that may be good enough when Felipe Massa comes to make his second and final stop for the day, to see Fisichella retain that 4th place.
Ferrari's putting a lap on Fisichella there, of course, and just steaming away with it. But which one will be ahead after the second stop? That's the decisive factor, the decisive moment of this Grand Prix, surely coming up pretty soon with this second round of stops being made now. Good first sector from Michael Schumacher, making sure that he's close to Barrichello, as close as possible. Mika Salo making his way down the pits now as well, and also De La Rosa. Now these two have been battling for lap after lap, John, Salo and De La Rosa, so this battle in the pits is going to be crucial as Toyota go to work, Jaguar go to work, Will they get Salo back out ahead of the Jag? Here comes De La Rosa.
He's got it. De La Rosa has a contact. He put him in the wall. He had De La Rosa all but in the wall.
Well done. Got him. Well done.
Well, that was tight, and I mean, both drivers going for it. It's a question of whether De La Rosa may have released the speed limiter button slightly early, just to try and get ahead of Salo. But well, you couldn't have put let's say, a piece of paper between the wheel of the Jaguar and that pit wall. Nevertheless, Felipe Massa also just recorded his fastest lap of the race. He's still being chased like mad by Kimi Räikkönen.
And Sauber are preparing, and I think it probably will be for Felipe Massa. So we shall see how this battle gets resolved. This is a replay, John, of De La Rosa coming down the pits. And that's how close they came, the Toyota and the Jaguar.
It's just questionable as to whether the Jaguar was still on the speed limiter button. I assume it was, because you can believe me that Salo was accelerating as quick as they can to get down to the head of that pit lane. Felipe Massa's in for the last time.
So, will Felipe Massa hold on to 5th place? He's driven superbly well here today, but he's in danger of losing a point-scoring position.
Or the question is, will he take 4th place? Remember, Jordan had a great stop for Fisichella, 8.4 seconds. Well, the clock's ticking away. How many is it going to be? It's a good stop. It was 8.4 seconds. It should have been quicker. That fuel hose did not disconnect quite as quickly. So Massa down the pit lane with warnings. Where's Fisichella? Where is Räikkönen?
Back out he comes, and
Fisichella gets him again.
That's how close it was. Oh, Fisichella just managing to dip round him as they came into that first corner. Well, now Massa's got to keep it under control, and it's where the 2 McLarens come out that will be the fascinating factor. Here comes Ralph from 3rd place, a lonely 3rd. Really, there's not a lot he can do, but he has to maintain focus, hope for a decent pit stop here.
8.2 seconds. And again, everybody very deliberate, particularly on the fuel hose, not just getting it in, but making sure you get a clean break. And it is heavy, it's awkward. The fuel flap closes. Ralph continues again, clips across that white line, but apparently not a problem. So wave blue flag for Nick Heidfeld, and that was to do with somebody no doubt lapping him. Fisichella, in fact, it would be, because Fisichella is just directly behind him on track. And
here comes Michael. Michael coming into the pits now. This is where it all happens between the 2 Ferraris. Now, Barrichello will have to push to get away, try and open up enough of an advantage.
0.7 of a second, that was the difference when they came into the pit. Michael came into the pit lane. Fuel in, fuel out, 6.8, 7.6 in reality. And that's as quick as I think we've seen all day. Well, Schumacher makes his way around. We see Trulli comes out. Here's the battle. He's got Nick Heidfeld ahead of him. Michael Schumacher will want to get past the Sauber instantly. And I'm sure there will be maximum cooperation from Nick Heidfeld for his countrymen.
Well, I would think so, but yes, Schumacher really does have to find a way past the Sauber as quickly as possible here so that he doesn't get held up. Montoya is also ahead of him on track, and he needs to quickly find a way through, otherwise this could be the moment that he loses out the advantage to Barrichello.
So what a Grand Prix this is turning out to be, not just a battle between the 2 Ferrari drivers. Again, watches as Heidfeld. It's Massa, Philip Massa coming back in. Well, that was pretty easy for Fisichella in reality, because he had the momentum, he had the tyres up to pressure, tyres up to temperature. Rubens Barrichello now comes out of 13 and drives into the pit lane, cuts in at the last possible moment, and has to be careful, maybe not quite so committed through that long right-hand corner as Michael Schumacher gets the speed down. He's got to be absolutely wheel perfect. He's got to be precise, not lock it up, not slide and overshoot the pits. So 7.6 was Michael Schumacher's total time. Schumacher through turn 13 up to turn 14.
7.6, it's exactly the same, John. Here we go. The battle between the 2 Ferraris. Rubens should stay in front, but where is Michael coming down the straight? That's where he is. And Rubens Barrichello appears on the left-hand side as Montoya comes in for his pit stop. But it's this battle. Barrichello rejoins in front. And unless Michael does something very, very brave
here.
into
turn 2. Well, no, he's not. He's not going to do it.
He's not going to challenge. He's going to defend his position, but he's not going to try and go for that last-minute lunge. If that had been perhaps somebody not in a Ferrari, he would have gone for it.
Well, he's got an opportunity. He wants to put pressure on Barrichello. Turn 4 is not a bad place to do it. Barrichello's tyres, of course, just going through the first 4 corners. They're up to heat because they're preheated before they go in the car, but of course every set of tyres does feel different. It takes a couple of corners, maybe a lap, to get a sense for what that fresh tyre, more fuel on board is going to do. Michael's had that advantage in one lap, but of course he's had to carry that little bit of extra fuel for that additional lap.
So, fantastic racing this between the two Ferraris, and it's Barrichello who merges from that second stop with the advantage, and it's still, we're waiting for the two McLarens to come in. They haven't made their second stop yet, and they're putting in some very quick times at the moment. A 1:17.1 for Raikkonen, a 1:17.3 for David Coulthard, and this is their opportunity.
Yes, but further down the field, Felipe Massa is really now being held up by Giancarlo Fisichella because they're running in the low 1-minute 19s. And I think Felipe Massa is feeling frustrated because he just lost the opportunity to get ahead of Fisichella. Currently that would be for 6th place. And in the meantime, the two McLarens are charging away, running in the low 1-minute 17s. And if they can continue to run at this pace, when they make their pit stops, they will come out ahead of Fisichella and Felipe Massa. So Raikkonen and Coulthard could consolidate their pit stops and end up in 4th and 5th places.
That really would be quite something, but it does look as though the McLarens should be able to achieve that with some very quick laps being set by both of them, Raikkonen and Coulthard. McNish is just lapped again there by race leader Rubens Barrichello, but McNish running down in 15th place in the second Toyota teammate.
And Michael dives down the inside. Now, I suspect he got a signal from McNish to say, go, go, go. Nonetheless, for Michael, he did not want to go down the inside line. There is dust, rubber and rubble there. Also, it compromises his corner into turn 6, and therefore the exit. Felipe Massa pushing hard, but Giancarlo Fisichella, there's the gap. It's increased a little bit. It's up to 1.4 seconds.
Fisichella has to push as hard as possible now, knowing he will be told by the team that the McLarens are going to be such a threat, but I don't think he can do enough with...
McLaren are getting ready. They're already in the pit lane. There we see the team. So will it be Raikkonen? Will it be Coulthard?
Yes, and will they get out ahead of those two? I think they will, ahead of Fisichella and Massa, but they will need clean pit stops.
I think it'll be, I'm sure it'll be Coulthard, because Raikkonen, who's that bit further ahead of Coulthard, if they can keep him out running in clear air, he can run at the pace he needs. Look at him through 10-12, and absolutely he is using every ounce of horsepower that Mercedes engine provides him. It'll be DC, I believe, that will come in. They'll keep Raikkonen out as long as possible, as long as he's in clear air. It is David Coulthard in for the second and final time.
So round the top corner into the pits he comes. He had dropped away a little bit from Raikkonen in those last few laps, bit of traffic coming into play. The gap between them, 3.3 seconds as he comes in. So not really a prospect here of beating Raikkonen on the pits. It's more a problem or a question of trying to get out in front of the Jordan of Giancarlo Fisichella. How long is it going to take? 8.2 seconds. And now he heads down pit lane as Fisichella comes through turn 13.
So Fisichella again with Felipe Massa on his tail. And while all that's going on, Kimi Raikkonen in the 4th place is using every opportunity. Personal best in that first sector. Coulthard comes down the pit lane. Will he get out ahead of these two?
He is ahead.
Is he out?
No, he's already out. It's easy, Johnny. They've made it easy. Those last few laps that
they picked up sufficient time.
Yeah, massive advantage for the McLarens on the last few laps, and they've easily got in front of Fisichella and Massa, and likelihood is that Raikkonen will do the same next time around.
And the problem, I think, was for some reason, well, not only the pace of the two McLarens, but Giancarlo Fisichella on this final run has not been able to run at the pace he was doing in the early stages before the first, and certainly after the first round of stops. He's holding up Felipe Massa. The lap times are being determined by Fisichella, not by Massa, and now the team sit back and wait. How long can Kimi Raikkonen go?
Well, yes, I wonder how many more laps he's going to do before he comes in. That's him crossing the line now, getting a pass to Mark Webber. Webber still running in 16th place.
He's running 1.5 seconds a lap faster on the last lap than race leader Rubens Barrichello. He's some 5.9 seconds behind Ralf Schumacher. Now, Ralf's had 2 stops. We don't know whether Kimi Raikkonen, he must surely make a second stop. If he doesn't, well, this is going to be a bit of a special drive indeed.
Well, I'm sure he'll be coming in soon, but there's no sign of McLaren making his pit stop just yet, but I'm sure it will be coming up fairly soon now. As Kimi Raikkonen 5 laps away, according to the computer, from Ralf Schumacher, but Ralf has made his second stop. But certainly one of the stars of the show so far, the young Finn Raikkonen. Barrichello, lap 60 we are on now, lap 61 in fact we're on. They've completed 60 laps, 17 laps remain, and still we await any sign of McLaren calling Raikkonen into the pit lane.
Kimi Raikkonen has got a 29.4 second advantage on teammate David Coulthard. Coulthard, of course, now on his first flying lap. His in and out lap was a 1:39, and that's quite relevant overall in the scheme of things as the engineers work it out. But Raikkonen comes across 1:17.010, and another strong lap, the Finn pushing. I mean, really, really impressive. Now we're seeing the kind of performance I certainly believe that we would see from Kimi Raikkonen, and I'm sure as the years with his association with McLaren and Mercedes continue, we're going to see something quite remarkable. And we're always looking for somebody to come up and challenge Michael Schumacher. No one really has done that consistently. Is this the man that's going to take the championship battles to Michael Schumacher?
Maybe he will be. Well, I have to say his best lap in the last lap.
Fastest, quickest time in first sector.
Yeah, again fastest in first sector. Amazing performance this from Raikkonen. You know, he's only got a tenth of a second away from the outright fastest lap of this race that Barrichello took on lap number 31. We're now on lap number 60, and Raikkonen's got himself absolutely dialed in here. There is Ralph, not far behind, and McLaren are now preparing for Raikkonen's stop. So as he gets closer to the back of Ralf Schumacher, then it's time for him to come in for his second pit stop.
Really, isn't it a great shame that McLaren just couldn't get their act together in qualifying? They just could not find the balance. Oh, look at that! Well, Raikkonen on the curb, but Davison spun it, and I think Davison, that may be the end of his Grand Prix. That's a great shame. He's done a really great job all weekend, but I suspect the young man is absolutely exhausted.
Well, there is Raikkonen in the pits. It's a clean stop, I think. The fuel's still going aboard. Yes, 7.8 seconds gets him out cleanly. He will emerge ahead of Coulthard.
Yes, that was a quicker stop than David Coulthard. He was able to go deeper, therefore less fuel required, and that's the benefit of being able to do strong runs, long runs. There we see Coulthard just coming out of 14 as Raikkonen dives down into turn 1.
So the McLarens, the two McLarens that started such a long way back on the grid, 10th and 11th places, have now worked their way up into 4th and 5th positions, both in the points. It's a pretty impressive race performance today from the McLaren Mercedes team. The question is whether Raikkonen can still go chasing after Ralph. This was what happened to Davidson.
Yes, this is round about turn 9, and Anthony Davidson, just the back end broke away, and I would put that one down to simply fatigue. Anthony Davidson, he was 4 laps down to that point, so he'd completed 77 laps. I mean, it is a massively tough circuit, and he never felt truly comfortable in the car. On Friday, he said that his back was hurting him. They were going away to revise the seat and try and get a better position for him, but fatigue and concentration take a real pasting around the Hungaroring. Nevertheless, I think he can walk away feeling he's done a strong job for Minardi.
So here we are, two Ferraris now opened up a little bit of a gap, 1.6 seconds, and perhaps Michael at this stage will relax and say, well done Rubens, you've done a good job all weekend. I'm just going to sit and follow you home. Let's look for a Ferrari 1-2 and wrap up that Constructors' Championship. And of course, Rubens move into 2nd place in the Drivers' Title battle.
Ben, Kimi Raikkonen is in a planet right now of his own. Not only did he get out ahead of David Coulthard with a nice comfort zone, he's managed to go fastest in that last sector. Whoa, contact was it? Well, this is this battle going on with Salo and De La Rosa. Ignatius further 9 seconds behind that battle. That's a battle for 13th place.
Great to see. They're still hard at it though. De La Rosa having a little bit of a go. Didn't make it happen, but Salo a tough guy to pass.
Well, remember what happened on the exit of the pit lane. Salo put the squeeze on De La Rosa. Well, I tell you, it got close again.
Now we're riding on board with Felipe Massa, who now finds himself outside the points. He's been running in the points all afternoon, but of course now with McLaren having moved up with both cars ahead of this battle that he has with Fisichella. Poor old Felipe, nothing he's done wrong, but he now finds himself out of the points, down in 7th place, and that would be a bitterly disappointing pill to swallow if he stays there and fails to score.
Yes, and of course crucial to both teams, because Sauber on 11 points, Jordan on 6. Fisichella in the last of the point scoring positions gets 1 point, so Jordan would gain a point up to 7-4 behind Sauber as they go to Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. So that squeeze on the battle for 5th place in the championship is going to get very heated indeed, and it's taken some pressure possibly away from Renault, who currently have no one in the point. Gianno Trulli, their sole runner, behind that battle for 6th place in 8th.
It's tough time for the Sauber team, having seen their man drive well, the car perform faultlessly, but he's gone from possibly scoring 2 points earlier on in this race to now scoring nothing, and that's all down to the effect that the McLarens have had by moving up through the order. Reliability's been pretty solid up front, I have to say, in this race. We haven't seen too many problems for the front runners as such. Again, the only cars that we've seen go out, Villeneuve, Irvine, Button, who spun, and Davidson, who spun out as well.
And this is the battle going on with Nick Heidfeld running a 9th, Jarno Trulli an 8th, so embroiled in a Bridgestone Michelin battle. Renault versus Sauber, Petronas just ahead of them. That's the battle, I think, with De La Rosa and Salo. They're going to be lapped by these cars running currently in 8th and 9th place.
Well, it is a long, hard afternoon for these guys who are outside the points. No real prospect of scoring points unless something very dramatic happens up front, and yet still pushing lap after lap to try and gain a little advantage.
But the reason that they are racing, of course, is that while you finish outside the points, you don't get that advantage. But again, the funding for these teams is in part derived from their positions in Grand Prix. So if you're running an 8th or 9th, you might think it's important. You might say, oh, I'll give up, I don't get any points. Sorry, sunshine. The team earn out of this. It's very important that you drive 100% for the entire race distance.
Well, here we are, Nick Heidfeld just getting that little bit closer to the back of Trulli. Trulli having to take a tight line. The Jaguar of De La Rosa moving wide to let them through. Does a good job of allowing them through there, but they're still looking for the opportunity as Heidfeld. He knows he has potentially the faster car here, but he can't find a way of getting past Jarno Trulli. It's the traffic that he's depending on, really, to hold up the Renault in front of him and then try and take advantage. The next one is the Toyota of Mika Salo.
So always a traffic situation, you look to it to try and make opportunities for yourself. And Jarno Trulli knows that every bit as well as Nick Heidfeld does. And it's important now for Trulli to be careful in where he does put this lap on Mika Salo. You want to do it in a way where you can just slip through, but make it difficult for the car behind you. Mika Salo, of course, receiving blue lights on the cockpit, blue flags around the circuit. He's got to get out of the way as quickly as possible, otherwise he will be penalised. He does so. It doesn't really help anybody, but Nick Heidfeld might think he could sneak. But look at Pedro De La Rosa. He comes back now and right on the tail of the Toyota.
Yes, he lost a massive amount of time when he backed off to let these through. And then with Salo backing off, suddenly he's right there again with the Toyota of Salo. So he certainly has not given up on this battle for 13th position. Take another look here at Heidfeld. Great onboard view. Right behind the Renault. Looking at the back end of the car, the rear wing of Trulli's machine.
I think he's getting closer to him. He's, well, in that mid-sector, it looked like he just ran down Trulli marginally, but of course in the exit of the corner, the aerodynamics coming into effect, it didn't make much difference ultimately. And it's a frustration to be in a situation like that. I'm sure Pedro De La Rosa's got a lot of debt he wants to settle. He got squeezed in the pit lane, he got squeezed around turn 13 into 14. In the meantime, Michael Schumacher, well, he's just going through the motions. He's lapping in 1 minute 20.1. One would be indicating that he would. In fact, Rubens Barrichello likewise running 1:19.0. So Michael clearly is backed off. Rubens also has backed off. They've got a 25-second advantage between third place and first, and a 21-second advantage between third and second.
Loads of rubber there, lots of little rubber particles at the side of the track with the softer compound tyres. Get little shreds of rubber that peel off, and that's what we can see on the outside of the back. Fastest driver around on that last lap was David Coulthard, 1:18.3. Of course, the two McLarens are still pushing quite hard. Raikkonen some 18 seconds behind Ralf Schumacher, so still quite a long way back. It looks as though the top positions are reasonably settled at this stage, and we still have some 16 cars out of 20 that started. So far, a good reliability run for most people, as 10 laps remain. Michael Schumacher still using a fair bit of road out of turn 1, but he's not pushing nearly as hard as he did early in this race. Both Ferraris have dropped the pace by a good couple of seconds, really, from what they are capable of achieving. Barrichello still holds the fastest lap, which he's set at on lap number 31.
I think you can see visually how much Michael has backed off. The 4.4 second gap has opened up in the last couple of laps. As we look at Giancarlo Fisichella and looking back to see where Felipe Massa is. Well, there you see the white nose of the Sauber as they swing their way through the exit of 11 coming into 12. And then it'll be the run down into that tight left-hander that leads up to turn 14.
Let's listen to the Honda engine working hard. Of course, there'll be a different engine note in the back of a Jordan next year, as we've learnt this weekend. It'll be the Ford V10 rather than the Honda V10.
Well, some people might call it the Cosworth V10. It'll be built by Cosworth, that's for sure, but there may be a sticker on it called Ford. And Jordan having a great day here with a very strong race from Fisichella, but an equally strong race from Takuma Sato. And he's not, I think he's hardly featured whatsoever this afternoon. Now, we have been watching that battle with Trulli and Heidfeld. They've been embroiled in a battle. In the meantime, Takuma Sato in 10th place, some 4.5 seconds behind. He has actually dropped back off the pace running now in the low 1 minute 20s, and in fact the gap has gone up to 4.9 seconds, so one suspects that the team are saying, well, you know, 10th, 9th, 8th, bring it home, Takuma, that's what we want you to do most of all.
Felipe Massa still pushing on as he chases after Fisichella. These two are going to be lapped soon, as Montoya just going past De La Rosa there, and that's putting a lap on him, so he doesn't have to worry too much. Montoya still going, of course, despite the problems earlier on, and now putting another lap on Mika Salo as well. There he goes, just nipping through on the approach into turn 5.
In fact, Ralph now running directly behind his own teammate. Montoya, I should say, running behind his own teammate as they come through those tight first gear corners, 6, and then into second, short shift into second into turn 7.
Yeah, well, De La Rosa still has that view of the rear wing of the Toyota. Lap after lap he's had this.
Yeah, I reckon he's going to grab Salo when he gets out of the car anyway, because I think he's so... I mean, he'll not be happy. Pedro de la Rosa is one of the nicest people you'll meet in Formula 1, and he'll feel that that was a tough move that was made by Mika Salo, and then it was compounded a couple of laps later. So I suppose if one might say that if situations were reversed, Pedro would have probably done the same, but maybe in a slightly gentler fashion.
Maybe that's the case. Well, Jaguar aren't really in any chance of scoring points with their one remaining car here, De La Rosa, because he's all the way down in 14th, but he's still pushing, still attacking, and still trying to find a way past Mika Salo. His future uncertain, of course. Well, a number of drivers' futures still uncertain. We're yet to hear about Jaguar's driver lineup for next year. Bit of oversteer there, bit of a correction. Same with Toyota. We're yet to hear what they're going to do. We might learn more at the next Grand Prix at Spa in a couple of weeks' time.
And I think a lot of that decision-making will probably hinge on the announcement today with the new tie-up with Jordan and Ford badged Cosworth engines. So that may well involve Prenson rejoining the team, because of course the title sponsor of Jordan is a German-based company, and the deal may involve commercial aspects and rather complex. I mean, a deal that only Eddie Jordan could put together. He is the deal maestro in Formula 1. So don't be surprised to see Prenson first of all resolving his issue with the team over that dismissal where there was a breach of contract on the part of Jordan. That's going to be resolved, and then a negotiation for any further contract should Heinz-Harald Prenson be the preferred driver of this German/Anglo alliance.
Well, there once again the points position if they finish where they are now, and it would put Barrichello in a clear second place in the championship. And I'm sure he'll be only too pleased about that, to have a 5-point advantage over the two Williams teammates, who would go to 40 points. Montoya already on 40 points, but well out of a point scoring position here today, down in 11th place. As Fisichella comes through, there's Felipe Massa still keeping him honest, of course. Jordan just keeping everything crossed at the moment that the car makes it to the finish of the race. They've had some poor reliability this season, and it's been some 4 races since Fisichella last scored. That was in Montreal, taking a 5th place. That was the end of his sequence of 3 5th places, and everybody at Jordan just got everything crossed at the moment to make sure that Fisichella makes it safely around in 6th place here today.
This battle again further down the field with Nick Heidfeld still trying to run down Jarno Trulli. That's the view from on board, of course. It's a very wide angle lens, makes it look a distance much greater than it is in reality. In terms of time, it's 1.6 seconds, and Takuma Sato a further 4.6 seconds behind. Well, Olivier Panis goes way offline, gets his tyres completely choked with all that, the marbles and the dust, rubber that gets rolled off the tyres. As we look back again, Salo and De La Rosa, and well, before this race is over, will De La Rosa manage to get close enough to challenge for 13th place?
Well, it's still an entertaining dice, this. You know, just looking at the back of the Toyota, they put that wing back on. I hadn't realised that. They had that extra wing. They were running that on Friday.
Yeah, that's actually apparently what happened was the team put that on overnight because when they were working in the car, they wanted to put their team mugs on it and they forgot to take it off.
Useful little tea tray there. Ove Anderson spoke to us earlier on the weekend and said that they tried it and it hadn't worked, but obviously they decided to go back to it for the race itself. And, well, it's keeping him ahead so far of the Jaguar.
And Michael Schumacher, we thought he'd gone to sleep, having an afternoon nap. Maybe Ross got on the old telephone and said, time to wake up, Michael, because Michael has now set fastest sector 1, fastest sector 2. The gap was 4.4 seconds, it was down to 3.9. It is now down to 0.6. New fastest lap, 1:16.2, and I think that may well be a new lap record as well.
It is a new lap record by half a second over Mika Häkkinen's mark from last year. And
I think that's a bit of a point. Maybe Michael said, I'm going to show this little Brazilian teammate of mine, who is the world champion. And just to make the point, he took about 3 seconds out of Rubens on that last lap.
But then, of course, Barrichello is presumably capable of going pretty much as quickly if he wanted to, but I'm sure he'd rather preserve the car at this stage. He's had enough mechanical woes with his Ferrari during the course of this year not to want to stress it too much at this point. And as long as he keeps control, he's heading for his second win of the season. There was a wry smile on the face there of Ross Brawn after that magic lap from Michael Schumacher.
Well, here we're seeing, this is Ross talking. We think that's Michael's radio. The Rubens one's on the left. We saw all this played out in Austria, and I don't think we're going to see team orders here. But clearly Michael wanting to say, well, I am the fastest guy in Formula One. I can drop back in the space of 1.5 laps. I clawed back 4.4, or just 3.8 seconds, in fact, in reality it was. I mean, Rubens, of course, not running at race pace. Rubens pretty much matching Michael all the way around this lap, and pretty much all the way around the 73 laps of this year's Grand Prix.
Well, it's a relaxed and already it's almost festive mood down in the Ferrari pits and on the pit wall. They have just decimated the opposition here today. 22 seconds back to Ralf Schumacher. There he is in third place. Well, Ralph's done a good job, I have to say. All weekend, Ralf Schumacher has been a star performer, doing a fantastic job in qualifying yesterday, surprising even himself, I think, with that third place on the grid when it looked as though Williams was struggling. Today in the race, he's kept his focus, he's kept his concentration, John. He hasn't had anyone to play with, no racing really going on around him, but he's stuck at it.
Yeah, it's another solid, historic sort of drive from Ralf Schumacher, a man who, you know, doesn't give an awful lot as a human being, isn't necessarily desperately popular with the team because he's got a teammate who the team just love to bits, but really it's in the cockpit that it all counts. And Ralf has done a really strong job, dominated his teammate this weekend. Going to bring the car home. We believe it'll be a third place, 4 points for the team. They all benefit ultimately because there's usually a bit of a division of the funds amongst the team. They sometimes work on a performance-related basis, not simply just a straight salary. And a bit of performance-related pay often does drag out that last ounce of effort from a team.
Yeah, well, there's Alan McNish going through shot as he's about to be lapped by David Coulthard. Coulthard, of course, running in 5th place. He's some 6.8 seconds off this man, his teammate, Kimi Räikkönen. And again, Räikkönen has performed well, not making any mistakes himself, and just showing that he has the breadth of ability, really, to sustain this pace through a tough Grand Prix here in Hungary. Across the line then, we have just 3 laps to go in the Hungarian Grand Prix, and Ferrari looking set to back up their 1-2 finish here last year with another 1-2 finish, but in a different order. Barrichello this time all set to take his 2nd win of the season, his 3rd Prix victory. The McLarens have been star performers as well, having qualified poorly. They're looking at 4th and 5th at the end.
Yes, also Michael maybe a little bit unhappy because he was looking to seal 10th victory, create a record of victories in a single season, and he's maybe now going to have to wait until the teams move back up into Northern Europe, up into the mountains and the forests of the Ardennes in Belgium. Take all the waterproof gear with you guys, because I'll guarantee you if it doesn't rain all weekend it will certainly be wet at some part. And a racetrack again that Michael Schumacher might care to call his track, because it's only a few kilometres down the road to the town he spent most of his youth. That's Köppen, just across the border in Germany.
Well, we're riding with Fisichella here. He's also driven well, looking to score his first ever points in Hungary. Never managed to get in the points before. He had a best finish of 8th here back in 1998. So looking good for him at the moment. Keep fingers crossed as Salo and De La Rosa continue their own pride tussle over 13th place.
Yeah, they've been at this hammer and tongs since certainly since the last pit stop, and in fact it was pretty much like that before the last pit stop. They came in together, and it was just the last sort of squeeze at the exit of the pit lane that Salo managed to keep ahead of Pedro De La Rosa. And we're now with, well, 2 laps to go. So, and look, watch us. Coulthard just dives through, and De La Rosa pulls over. Now he'll slip in behind Coulthard and hope to get drawn along and take him up once again to the rear of the Toyota. De La Rosa, of course, obliged to let a leading car, do so. He gets blue lights in the cockpit. He'll see blue flags around the circuit.
And here we are, riding on board with Rubens Barrichello. He took pole position, a little bit of a surprise, perhaps, to take pole away from Michael Schumacher on a track where Schumacher is always so fast. He led away from pole position, and he's managed to control the pace of this race on the critical moments before coming in and just after making each pit stop. Barrichello has done exactly what is required of him. Schumacher might be shadowing his every move, but it's Barrichello's day here in Hungary.
But one might wonder, had the situation been reversed, had Michael taken the lead into that first corner, would they have run nose to tail and 1-2 like this, or would Michael have just given us an example of why he's so effective around the Hungaroring? We've seen that from that lap record, that one at 16.207, set on lap 72. So, well, maybe there's a masterclass for Rubens Barrichello today, but Michael clearly still capable of shining and ultimately dominating.
Well, he was second here last year, Barrichello. He did a good job behind Michael Schumacher, defended Michael from David Coulthard in the early stages of the race, and did the Ferrari team job perfectly. Michael went on to win the driver's title last year. This time it's a 1-2 for Ferrari, and with this victory, Ferrari take their 4th Constructors' title in a row. It's been a fantastic season for them, and they cap it again here. Round 13 of the championship, it's a 1-2 finish. Barrichello wins in Hungary.
A superb job from Ferrari yet again. I mean, this team has been supreme throughout the year. They've tied up now the Manufacturers' Championship. And Ralf Schumacher comes across some 13.3 seconds behind Rubens Barrichello. A really strong drive from Ralf Schumacher. He'll feel happy with equipment that really wasn't anywhere in the same race. But here's been, for me, one of the stars of this race, and his star's going to shine brighter and brighter in the future.
Thank you! Thank you! Thank you! Thank you! Thank you! Thank you!
Well, one assumes that's thank you. I do my best to translate Finnish.
Speak up a bit of rubber. Speak up rubber.
The picking up a bit of rubber, of course, is just to ensure that the weight of the car is all or over the 600 kilograms, which of course is the minimum weight the driver and fluids on board. So just to be sure, you can pick up maybe another 3 or 4 pounds or a couple of kilograms of rubber, and there's plenty to choose from around this racetrack today.
So Fisichella scores for Jordan's. He finishes in 6th place, a vital 1 point to the Jordan team, bringing them up to 7 points in the Constructors' Championship, his first point since Canada, and again the result of hard work all weekend long.
And again it just confirms and really just tops off a good day for Jordan. They lost their Honda engine, they're now going to a Ford badged V10. So, I mean, Eddie has got reason, as do the entire team, to celebrate.
Well, Barrichello certainly making sure he does drive offline, picks up a little more rubber, and I'm sure that's partly as well, as you say, not just weight, but to cover up the grooves on the car, on the tyres, which are now quite worn at the end of the Grand Prix. That was the moment of celebration as Ferrari celebrate a 1-2 finish, the Constructors' title all wrapped up. They've done it all. And we're only at the 2/3 distance mark through the season, still 4 Grand Prix to go. And Jean Todt, the architect of this team, can celebrate once again.
Luca Badoer, a man that we don't see on racetracks these days, but we see doing an enormous amount of testing on behalf of Ferrari. He, in part, is the reason why this car has been both so competitive and reliable. He, along with Luciano Berti, have done, well, I mean, almost week upon week of sometimes mind-numbing testing at Fiorano and at Mugello. and their contribution. Luca de Montezemolo and Jean Todt have said if Luca Badoer wants a job for life at Ferrari, he's got it.
Well, he has certainly made a massive contribution. And Rubens Barrichello coming through to receive the applause of the crowd here. 11 wins for Ferrari now in 13 Grand Prix this year. It's a stunning record, isn't it? It might not be quite up to that McLaren 1988 record, but, you know, they're still going to be tough to beat in all the remaining Grand Prix this year. Spa, Monza, Indianapolis and Suzuka. You still have to say Ferrari will be favourite.
I think there's nothing to say in the car. The team are operating at such an incredible level. I mean, think about what Williams and BMW are doing. Think about where McLaren and Mercedes-Benz are in reality. The weakness of McLaren right now is that the car is not as generous to the team in qualifying situations, but we've seen blinding races from Coulthard and Monaco, stunning race from Raikkonen in Manicourt, the French Grand Prix. Again, they just cannot afford to qualify 10th and 11th.
They just can't quite keep up with that sustained brilliance that Ferrari have. Partly down to the tyres, partly down to the chassis, and down to the two drivers. What a package it is. And that's nice to see. And Rubens thoroughly deserved that victory today.
And look at them, pair them, they're as fresh as a daisy. I mean, you'd think that after 77 laps pounding around 190.190 miles, that you'd be completely exhausted. I mean, they were driving hard, other than for the last 10 or so laps of this Grand Prix, yet they're both absolutely ready to do another Grand Prix.
Well, there are the constructors' points, and Ferrari have indeed wrapped up the championship, some 77 points ahead, and with 65 points available, that means it's all over for Williams BMW, as they really expected. They're still involved in a battle for second place in the Constructors' Championship with McLaren, but, well, Ralph scoring 6 points here today, of course, and McLaren are slightly outscoring because they got both of their drivers into that top 6. They're the celebrations, though, Michael. There's Felipe Massa. You know, I do feel for Felipe Massa today, John. If somebody deserved a point, it was that young man. Unfortunately, he was best of the rest in 7th.
Yes, but I think that race again will be noted. It was a very, very strong race. He raced hard all afternoon with Giancarlo Fisichella, probably one of the most underestimated drivers in the paddock. The Jordan performed, it was reliable, it had the performance, and I mean, you can't take anything away from Jordan. They earned that point. It wasn't one that was deserved, that was an earned point, and that was due once again to a superb qualifying from Giancarlo Fisichella. Felipe Massa, he may have redeemed himself, I'm sure he has.
Well, the fans are on track. They're getting ready for the top 3 to appear on the podium, and I'm sure we're going to see a very happy Rubens Barrichello. There, the Williams crew looking pretty happy as well. That was a good effort from Ralf Schumacher in particular. A little disappointing with their other man, Juan Pablo Montoya, over the whole weekend. That's the way it goes sometimes, and I'm sure they'll be looking forward to Spa in a couple of weeks. Perhaps Williams will be able to challenge there. So let's take a look through the results then. Ferrari 1-2 with Barrichello taking his 2nd win of the season. Michael Schumacher shadowing his every move. Ralf Schumacher a solid 3rd place, but Raikkonen and Coulthard managing to recover from a very poor qualifying session yesterday to score points here today. Giancarlo Fisichella also scoring the final point for Jordan. Felipe Massa disappointed in the end after a well-driven race, and then all the rest lapped, including Trulli and Heidfeld. Further on down the list, Montoya, after losing bits of bodywork by running wide, and then the dice with Raikkonen, dropping down to 11th place after the extra pit stop, and nothing much he could do about that. Panis, Salo, De La Rosa, McNish and Webber, the other finishers, to a gruelling Grand Prix, but 16 out of 20 cars that finished this race. There are the non-finishers: Davidson, Jenson Button, Eddie Irvine and Jacques Villeneuve.
Yes, that's not a bad finishing record on a track where, you know, mechanical reliability can be suspect, but principally it's down to drivers. This is a race where driver fatigue does come into effect, and well, 16 drivers did a great job, 16 teams did a great job. In the case of the other 4, well, I think Anthony Davidson was the only one that might be put down to a driver error, and I think, well, he did a stunning job all weekend, and I think by and large can be excused whatever caused him to slide off track midway through the race.
Oh, well, there he is. Well done, Rubens. You did everything asked of you. Fantastic job. And as at the Nürburgring, it's time for the Brazilian anthem. Barrichello, therefore, celebrating his win here in Hungary. It's a tremendous atmosphere, fantastic amount of Ferrari support, and well-deserved.
And I think also a really, really popular victory. Rubens has done a great job for the team, supported Michael Schumacher all the way through the year. Won in Germany, won the European Grand Prix when Michael made an error, and now it's payback time. And I think that genuinely people here, both within Ferrari and the fans who are all over the racetrack and crowding into the pit lane, thrilled to see the Brazilian take his second victory of the year.
Well, Michael Schumacher receiving his trophy for second. A 1-2 dominant performance from the team. That's what they enjoy. They've shown everyone else the way to go. And Ralf Schumacher, he's still got a smile on his face. It's a lovely atmosphere down there today, and he can't help but getting swept along by it after his hard-fought drive. Well, it was a lonely time for him, but you know, he showed good pace in certainly in certain sections of the race. Couldn't maintain that Ferrari pace in the early stages, though.
No, they couldn't, but I think what he did, he showed a lot of character. And there we see, in fact, the race pace, Ben, virtually within half a second of last year's race time, which I suppose maybe due to the fact that both Ferraris did back off fairly dramatically in the last 10 or so laps. Otherwise, we'd have seen this race maybe about 15-20 seconds quicker than last year.
Ferrari dominated everything. They were fastest in every practice session. Pole position, fastest lap, the 1-2 finish. Just perfect. Rubens is going to have to be a bit careful the way he waves that bottle around.
Yeah, he was sort of waving around. I think Jean Todt, if he didn't get a clunk on the head, he certainly got pretty close with, of course, Jean Todt once again getting a real eye full of sparkling, sticky champagne. And Rubens, well, he is delighted. He is absolutely over the moon. I think he might have clobbered Jean Todt because his eye looks a little bit red, and he certainly got it closed.
Oh, that's yeah, that could have been a little bit painful indeed, as you say. But Barrichello just celebrating this moment, making the most of it. And of course, Ferrari's Constructors' title, that is their 12th Constructors' title over the years. That puts them 3 ahead now of Williams with this 4 in a row. 1999, 2000, 2001, and now in 2002 as well. What an achievement. And that man, last man in there, Jean Todt, really responsible for those 4 Constructors' titles.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Jean Todt is a man who will go down in Formula One that really is one of those extra special people that you meet many times in certain industries, but certainly in Formula One. Not too many of them come along. You think of people, legends like maybe back in the 50s, Alfred Neubar, who orchestrated the Mercedes domination in 54 and 55. And then you have to struggle a little bit to find individuals, not team principals, that's a different thing, but individuals who are employed who can achieve that level of success to a team.
Now, let's see, this is when it was all getting a bit carried away with the champagne. And did he bash him here? Let's have a look.
Well, Rubens, look at Jean Todt's eyes. His right eye certainly looks pretty closed, and he may have just caught the edge of that bottle of Magnum of that champagne. So Ferrari engineers, these of course are the race fans. It'll be a big party tonight in Budapest, a city which of course is suffering also, like many other cities in Central Europe, from the floods that have been affecting in the Danube, already well up to danger levels, but none of that affecting the fans here today.
That's right, hopefully they won't have a problem going back down into the city if that's where they came from. Well, it's been a magical day for Ferrari in Hungary, and we now can hear from the drivers.
Congratulations, gentlemen. A very hot and exciting Hungarian Grand Prix with victory going to Rubens Barrichello, Michael Schumacher right behind him in second place, and Ralf Schumacher out on his own in third place. Rubens, second win of the year, but this one must be particularly special. You did it from pole. You had Michael right behind you at the finish. And not only did you do that, but you clinched the Constructors' Championship for Ferrari. Is it going to be a big party like at Magny-Cours?
Well, I hope so. I think the most important thing is to have clinched the Constructor. I think it's, you know, for the team. I think Michael have said so many times how good they are and how good we are together. So it's just a day of commemoration. I mean, you know, it's sometimes you feel like you only have to do this or that to win the championship, and you know, you feel a little bit under pressure, but after all, we had a great car, a great team, great pit stops, great everything today.
Now, as you say, there was a lot of pressure still, because after each of your 2 pit stops, you just squeezed back onto the track in front of Michael, just by half a second or so. After the second stops, did you have a similar rule that you had at the Nürburgring, where you won last time, that you had to hold station after that and keep in those team orders?
Well, I would say not a rule, but you know, when you have a situation like that, you just want to concentrate and bring it home. I mean, we had, like I said, the best car out there, so you know, after a point, we just said we just bring it home. So it was nice just to have the 2 cars finishing. I mean, we having the constructor, but he's still winning the race 1-2. So it's just a fantastic feeling.
Rubens, great drive. Thank you. Michael, you had the problem of starting on the dirty side of the track. How dirty was it? Because it didn't look as though you got away very well, and then you had Ralph pushing you very hard down into that first corner.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it was not very pleasant to try and start from the position I did. I felt like we sort of started on ice, and that made, obviously, the situation very tight into the first corner, where Ralph naturally tried to squeeze me from the outside, but I was lucky being by side enough to sort of then stay late on the brake and stay in position. But very fair maneuver from him, not to do anything in the wrong way, but obviously we know each other well enough not to do so, and that allowed me to sort of stay behind Rubens and drive home the race we did.
Now, obviously you were very close to Rubens throughout the race. In that final stint, you dropped back about to 3.5 seconds behind Rubens, and you put in a series of incredibly fast laps. You closed right in at the end. Was there ever any chance that you might have just found a way past?
That wasn't the intention, honestly. I just had some fun, that was the main reason. And it wasn't a series of laps, it was only one off lap. And then I slowed down again and just drove it safely home. That was it.
Michael, thank you. Ralph, apart from that bid down to the first corner to get past Michael, you had a very lonely afternoon.
Yeah, it was kind of boring, but to be honest, we didn't expect to be third here this weekend. I mean, it was our target, but we had such a bad weekend except qualifying and race today, so I'm totally happy. I mean, we were the only car out there, mostly only car out there being able to stay in a reasonable distance at least, and the team did simply a great job. We had all pit stops were brilliant, so I'm very happy.
But it was clear that you were pushing very hard, not just sitting there because the car in fourth was some way behind you, because after about 15 laps the gaps to the leader stabilised. Was that because your tyres came in, or was it just because
no,
whatever?
No, my tyres came in and I was pushing the whole race. The problem here, especially again with lapping people, is you've been held up for quite a bit of time, even if the gap still looks quite big. I don't know why it is here, so that sometimes made the times a bit slow, but in general I was pretty happy today.
Ralph, thank you. Rubens, victory today puts you into second place, 5 points ahead now of Ralph on your left. Next race, Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. How much are you looking forward to that?
Well, very much. I mean, it's one of the best races of the year. Last year I didn't have a very good race, but now with this fantastic car and I have clinched the constructors, I think we go with a little bit less pressure in trying to do a good job all over again.
Rubens, thank you. Now, gentlemen, if you'd like to speak in your own language, starting with Rubens.
So Rubens Barrichello, very calm at the end, but I think the fact that he's managed to be the one to win on the day they take the Constructors' title means quite a lot to him.
Yes, it does. I think that Rubens, I mean, in reality, he knows that the two cars utterly dominated the whole proceedings throughout the weekend. I mean, Michael doing what he did, dropping back and said having a little bit of fun. Well, you know, Michael's idea of fun and Rubens' idea of fun may not necessarily be the same. He won the race, but let's say he came first, because in reality there wasn't a race between them. Certainly at the end of the second round of pit stops, once they rejoined the racetrack, as we in fact I think watched in Austria, because Michael wasn't in a race with Rubens at that point because he knew that team orders were going to come into play. If Michael was racing for victory to win the World Championship and the team hadn't instructed Rubens to pull across, then Michael I think would have been a more aggressive, more assertive driver. So nevertheless, not to take anything away from what Rubens Barrichello did today. He did a brilliant job. He did what he had to do. He won the race, and the record books will say that Rubens Barrichello won in Hungary round 13 of the World Championship.
That's right. That's what will be remembered, and fully deserving winner he was as well. And Michael Schumacher having to settle for second place, so it's broken that run of successive wins again. He cannot seem to crack this one of 5 wins in a row in a single season. He's done it, as I said earlier, between 2 separate seasons. But Jack Brabham, Jim Clark, Nigel Mansell have all had 5 wins, 5 consecutive wins within one season, and now he's got to try and start all over again, and he's run out for this year because we've only got 4 Grand Prix left.
Yes, and no doubt he'll be up for it in Spa-Francorchamps circuit, where he made his debut back in 1991. He had a brief test at Silverstone in Jordan, and Eddie Jordan recognised a bit of talent when he sees it, and he also recognises good racing drivers too. Anyway, it'll be a racetrack that I think Michael Schumacher will want to seal his 10th victory in one season at.
Yeah, it means an awful lot to him, Spa, as it does to most of the drivers, and I'm sure that he wouldn't be too happy to have to sit behind Rubens there. Let's take a little look back over what's been going on in Hungary this afternoon, the Hungarian Grand Prix, which took place, I'm glad to say, in just about ideal conditions, not quite as hot as we sometimes see. The story before the start of the Grand Prix: Eddie Jordan will not have Honda engines next year, but he will have Cosworth engines, and badged by Ford, so he's happy about that. Before the start of the race, drivers were trying to keep their cool as much as possible, as Barrichello prepared to start from pole position and hope for a clean start this time, and all the problems he's had recently with mechanical bits and pieces. At the start of the race, Barrichello got away well.
Yes, but Michael is saying it's like starting on ice and then he gets squeezed into turn 1, but the brothers know one another well enough. But here, Jarno Trulli, he got pushed one way, then he got pushed the other way. Button on the left, Montoya on the right, and then Ross looking at it thinking, oh, that's a bit messy, and it got messy. Contact with the Williams and the Renault out of turn 2, and then dropping down turn 3.
Well, there were one or two.
The way to go round, that's turn 11.
That's right, 1 or 2 made mistakes, but generally I have to say they were all very well behaved, particularly in the early parts of the race. And Rubens Barrichello just went away with Michael Schumacher, the two of them pulling away easily from the opposition, which was led by Ralf Schumacher. David Coulthard and Kimi Räikkönen knew they were in for a long afternoon, but they just settled in there, didn't make any rash moves early, and it would certainly come their way a little bit later in the race. Barrichello and Michael Schumacher opened up an advantage, lap after lap, gradually extending their lead.
Yes, pretty much a second a lap was the advantage that they had, certainly in the first 10 to 15 laps, and Ralf Schumacher really in no position, but then he sort of seemed to stem that gap and stabilise it, and in fact drew it back in again. But once we got to the first round of pit stops, it was all over, and Ferrari domination was pretty much sealed for the afternoon.
Jacques Villeneuve was the first retirement in the BAR Honda. Mechanical issues putting him out of the race as we enjoyed the battle between Kimi Räikkönen and Juan Pablo Montoya.
Well, we do see some good passes from time to time. We've seen 2 great passes, 2 great races. This one wasn't quite as long, but Montoya losing out massively. Joy in the McLaren pit, but disappointment in Williams. Eddie Irvine, electronics, the fire went out, he said, and another disappointment for the Ulsterman, who really wonders whether Jaguar was worth it after all.
Slight mistake from Mark Webber coming into the pits, an unusual occurrence. He's usually pretty reliable, but he did make it through to the finish. And Anthony Davidson also making the odd mistake. Jenson Button going off almost a fraction of a second after Davidson had just run wide.
And there is Eddie telling Niki Lauda precisely the problem, as Mark Webber manages to go a bit up into the air. That's coming out of turn 12. That's been a corner since more or less this circuit was introduced. But Patrick Head very agitated, very unhappy, as David Coulthard gets it wrong also on turn 12. And Patrick just explaining to the guys in the pit wall, do it my way, that's the only way.
Well, this was the battle between De La Rosa and Mika Salo. De La Rosa almost squeezed into the wall. Felipe Massa had hoped to get past Fisichella as they came out, but it didn't happen. And Davidson, unfortunately, suffering a loss of grip towards the end of the Grand Prix and spinning out of his debut race in Formula One, but has shown well all weekend, and we'll enjoy watching him again at Spa in a couple of weeks' time. Up front, the pit stops were perfect from Ferrari. They were beautifully orchestrated, every single pit stop that they made for both Barrichello and Michael Schumacher. Perfection to watch, and it meant that Barrichello was able to stay out in front. The word came from Ross, go and do a quick lap if you like, Michael. That's exactly what he did, a 1:16.207, to take the new lap record.
And you always know there's something going on when Ross's hand drops down to the left or the right. He's got the radios for both drivers. Barrichello, we think, on the left, Michael on the right. So nothing happens in Ferrari without the control from the pit lane, and between Ross Brawn and Jean Todt, of course, involving the two drivers in those decisions all the way through.
And there, the celebration at the end of the race, the Ferrari crew and Barrichello's boys being able to celebrate this time as well. They've worked so hard on his car throughout the year, and they've had some inexplicable problems. Now it's come good.
And remember, this morning in the warm-up, Rubens did drop the car off the track. He stuck it in the gravel in turn 13. The team, their eyes rolled and thought, oh no, not any more additional work. Well, he's paid those engineers, the guys that work with Rubens' dedicated team, that work with each driver, paid them back massively, and their celebration and joy was all there to see.
So, the track has been invaded, as we say, and mostly they are Ferrari fans, no great surprise there, who've come along to celebrate this achievement of Rubens Barrichello and indeed of the team to take the Constructors' title. As we mentioned, it's 12 titles now for them. Just a quick run through that result list again. The tiny difference between Barrichello and Schumacher as they slowed down in those last few laps, allowing Ralph to get a little closer. He was only 13 seconds behind at the end, but that was due to Ferrari basically backing the pace off, and both McLarens making it into the points. David Coulthard taking 2 points for 5th place. A tough afternoon's work, but it was worth it. Fisichella taking the 1 remaining point for 6th. Trulli scoring a race finish, but they'll be disappointed not to have got the Renault into the points. Heidfeld and Sato, who was impressive, I have to say. Those mid-stint times were very good indeed.
Yes, I think for Sato, I mean, virtually on scene throughout the Grand Prix. I would say that was by far the best Grand Prix he's driven for the team. He pushed hard all the way, running in the middle and sometimes low bombing at 18s when the leaders were actually lapping slower than him. And it was only on that last stint, I think the team said, OK, we can't make up any ground, we're not going to get you into the points. And those ahead of him, he couldn't really threaten or challenge. But a fine drive from Sato, but particularly a great drive from Giancarlo Fisichella. And maybe the Jordan reliability or the finishing record will be dealt a big uplift after a fine performance by the team this afternoon.
Only the 4 cars not making it through to the finish, and I'm afraid 3 British drivers out of the 5 who started today's Grand Prix didn't make it to the end. Just looking down the list of fastest laps, Takuma Sato ended up with the 9th fastest lap, so that was a pretty good effort. Raikkonen and Coulthard with the 3rd and 4th fastest times ahead of Ralf Schumacher. So what would have happened if the McLarens had started somewhere near the front? Olivier Panis, he has to be one of the most disappointed this weekend. Always showed his pace. He was 6th fastest lap in the race, but of course that first lap really hurt him. He dropped to last but 1 position.
Well, Eddie Jordan and Baumgartner are just having a quick chat, and Eddie's saying keep in touch, but you know, normally keeping in touch these days means how big's your bank balance, and he did those 3 laps just prior to the cars coming out on field.
Pit stop classification, Jarno Trulli, the Renault team, actually having slightly the best stop, but look at the 2 Ferraris up there as expected, the 2 McLarens as well. Good effort from Sauber to get Felipe Massa out very quickly. Williams not scoring quite so well on the pit stop classification this time. Takuma Sato, 12th fastest stop for him, and on down the list as well. But once again, Ferrari showing why they're a winning team. Not only have they produced the best car this year, but they have amongst the best pit stops.
And also just getting a glimpse of the, well, I'm going to say the joy, but there's one of the marshals who's probably worked very hard all day, certainly having to stand out in the heat. Fortunately, the humidity was pretty low, and he's just knackered.
That's right, it's been hot, it's been hard work, and Nick Heidfeld has made it back to the Sauber pit. Peter Sauber having a chance to catch up on a late lunch there.
Yes, talking to Roger Benoit, that was the journalist we saw speaking to Mario Tyson of BMW, who runs a book throughout the weekend, and of course Roger, Swiss-based, Swiss national, and just having a quick bite to eat before they all pack up and jump in the rent cars, make the second Grand Prix of the day back to the airport just outside Budapest, and make their way back home again.
Speed traps, and Montoya actually ended up with the fastest speed over the speed trap by 1 km/h from Michael Schumacher. Raikkonen and Coulthard were both well up, I noticed, on the speed trap figures this time. Mercedes have done a lot of hard work this year, and they definitely are much more back in the ballpark after a disappointing start to the season for them. And that pace of the McLaren Mercedes evident throughout the race. Just a question of being further up on the grid. Next time in Spa, I'm sure they'll rethink their qualifying strategy, perhaps to use the tyres a little more effectively over that one lap in qualifying.
Yes, but I do think that the point that Ron Dennis was making all the weekend was that the tyre Michelin brought was a very conservative tyre for the conditions that everybody knows prevail here in Hungary. They brought the perfect tyre for the Monaco Grand Prix, and it played to all the strengths of McLaren, in this case David Coulthard. But here the tyre was just too conservative, and it had penalised McLaren more than anybody else. The Williams and the Renault may be slightly more aggressive with the tyre. They got the temperature, but they couldn't get the job done at McLaren.
There we are, just looking at those fastest laps. As you can see, Panis with the 6th fastest lap. Again, the Ferraris way ahead, but Raikkonen with a 16.926. You know, that was a quick time indeed from Kimi Raikkonen, and showed that McLaren Mercedes race pace was right there. It just didn't work for them in qualifying at all. So Panis, one of the more disappointed today, ended up finishing in 12th place, but proved his pace. Heidfeld, 8th fastest race lap. Sato with the 9th fastest, but it was a consistent run of laps that really was impressive from Sato at a time when other people weren't going so quickly, and that's what we certainly noticed during that race. Fisichella only the 12th fastest race lap, so Sato actually had a better individual race lap than his teammate Fisichella, who finished in 6th place.
Yeah, really what it does is just confirm the importance of qualifying, but the practice that goes beforehand to ensure that when you go out for that 1 hour, usually it's 4 runs, that you've got a car that you can really have confidence in, and you can make the commitment. It's all about having trust in the machinery to make the commitment, and therefore the times can come. And Fisichella was supreme in the Jordan on Saturday afternoon, starting 5th on the 3rd row of the grid, and he gets his reward with 1 point in 6th place.
Interesting to note that Davidson had a slightly better, faster lap than Mark Webber. Davidson, of course, did spin out late in the race, but showed his pace during that race as well, with a slightly faster lap than Mark Webber, and also in his first Grand Prix here at Hungary. But of course, Webber with a lot more experience from this season so far of running a Grand Prix distance.
Yes, and I think Anthony can do now too the Belgian Grand Prix, entirely different circuit, but one, of course, with his familiar, mind you, a Formula 3 car and a Grand Prix car. Every corner you know is a different corner on a Formula 1 car. Nonetheless, he's now got the Grand Prix experience under his belt. He's got over all the jeeps and all the things that a driver does first time out, and he can go there and just approach it from a more relaxed and confident perspective.
Well, the pack-up operation begins. They do have a 2-week gap, of course. We're back to the normal routine, the normal swing of Formula 1 calendar, having had 2 back-to-back races, then the 3-week gap to here in Hungary. Now we're back to the normal routine every 2 weeks for the remaining 4 Grand Prix of the year. And a good mood, no doubt, for those remaining 4 races here in the Jordan camp. As Fisichella and Sato both performing well, but Fisichella getting that 1 point in particular. And they'll be looking forward to Spa, I'm sure. It is, as I mentioned, one of the drivers' favourites, of course, and it'll provide us, I'm sure, with plenty of action to follow throughout the entire race weekend. As ever, we'll be following the progress of the drivers throughout the Friday practice, Saturday practice and qualifying, Sunday's warm-up and the race itself. Michael Schumacher will be hoping to come out and win again in Belgium, as he did last year and as he's done on a number of occasions in recent years.
But of course, that Grand Prix, it's one that was always weather dominated, and if there's any moisture in the air, the forests of the Ardennes, then we wouldn't call them mountains, but the hills do act like a magnet to those clouds. I really would love to see a weekend which starts fine and ends fine, but it's a pretty rare occurrence. Nevertheless, it'll be a Grand Prix once again for Michael Schumacher to challenge for that 10th Grand Prix victory in a single season, but he might find it quite difficult because Montoya with Williams and BMW could be a major threat. Certainly straight line speed and horsepower is not an issue with BMW.
Having a little chat with Antonio Pizzonia is Juan Pablo Montoya. Pizzonia didn't have a very good day yesterday, involved in an accident in the 3000 race with Mario Haberfeld, picking up a $5,000 fine for his efforts. But well, that's the way it goes sometimes. Pizzonia and Montoya have been around long enough to know you have good days, you have bad days. And it wasn't a particularly good day for Montoya today, but he'll fight back at Spa next in 2 weeks' time. So looking forward to that, I have to say. Always enjoy seeing the cars going around the Spa Grand Prix track, John. It is one of the best. It does provide spectacular pictures. As you say, the weather is always a factor, and it's just a great Grand Prix to look forward to. So that's what we'll be looking to in 2 weeks' time, and our Sky Digital coverage will bring you all the action from there. We are shortly going to be seeing the end of pictures from the track itself, but if you'd like to switch over to the Master channel, you can enjoy interviews to the end of the half hour. Thanks for joining us from Ben Edwards and John Watson. Until next time at Spa, goodbye for now.
As they speak in their own languages, we'll speak briefly to the man behind most of Ferrari's success, some people would say anyway, Jean Todt.
Oh, congratulations. Was that race as near perfection as it gets?
Well, you know, it was a great race for the team. Manufacturer championship for the fourth time in a row. Rubens to the second position. I mean, it's dream race. I must say, we had the feeling to cruise.
Well done, Jacques.
Well done, Jacques. Go off and get yourself completely covered in champagne. Now then, there were few and far talking points between various laps in that race, but there was one of some note when Barrichello came in for his second pit stop, and even though Michael denied there was a chance, it looked, at least on the replay, that there was a chance that Schumacher might have got past him there.
It was a very closely run thing. I think the Red Arrows would have been very pleased with that manoeuvre. They seemed to sort of synchronise themselves and come together with 2 tenths to spare. We're getting the replay here now. Out goes Rubens. 7.6 pit stop is about what you'd expect. Takes a rip off, and now he's able to put his foot down and is hammering down to first corner. Along comes Michael. 2 car lengths between them, and keep station really, but synchronised racing, I think, from the Ferrari team.
That was Michael sticking to what he said he would do, which was stay behind if the other guy was in front.
He was having a bit of fun, wasn't he? He was slowing down, speeding up. I was playing with him.
Oh, he's on full humour now, is he? After being on half humour after qualifying yesterday. The whole point, though, of what Michael said in the press conference just now is that, basically, paraphrasing it, I could have had you at any moment I wanted to, is what he said, without pouring any water on Rubens' fire. Great result for Rubens. Pleased for him. He's now jumped up into second place in the championship, but Michael could have won this one whenever he wanted to.
You go along with
that? We won't know.
We'll never know.
The truth is, I think Rubens out-qualified him, and I think that Rubens could have put on a good race, but they weren't racing. And I think the only honest guy in the press conference there was Ralph, when he said, to be honest, it was a bit boring in places.
I think that Ralph was being spectacularly honest there, but I mean, he was also pleased to have got to third position, because it wasn't something that Williams had in mind when this weekend started out.
No, they knew they had difficulties, and I think that all the Michelin runners and Ron Dennis and McLaren were suffering as well, had a bit of a problem against the Bridgestone runners.
Ron Dennis, in fact, can join us live. Thanks for joining us, Ron. That was the best of a bad job, or so it seemed from this side of the water.
Yeah, sort of something out of nothing, really. A little bit more frustrating than it might look, because we were actually quite quick in that time when we were in clear air. Both drivers posted pretty quick times, and better grid position, so we could have done a better job, obviously.
Ron, it's Jeremy Hart here. What's the plan now for the rest of the season? I mean, have you dropped back, do you think, now in performance, or I mean, where are you compared with a few races ago?
Well, to be honest, yesterday we were a little confused as to why we didn't qualify very well. Now, today, I think we're quite certain in the fact that we just didn't get enough energy into the tyres. Once the ambient went up as it did today, we got the car working quite well. So I think it's down to Bridgestone being a little Michelin being a bit conservative over tyre choice here. Hopefully they won't make that mistake in Spa. We've still got improvements coming through on the car, and we're still going to compete to win. That's what we're in Formula 1 to do, win. And we didn't today, so it's not good enough.
Ron Damon, now you had us thinking a little bit at the start because I was suggesting that perhaps one of the McLarens or two of them were going to go for a one-stop strategy in order to make up the bad qualifying. Could you have actually done that?
Well, from a fuel capacity point of view, no problem at all, but it wasn't the quickest way. We knew that we had to pick off various cars through the pit stops. It was a little surprising, no cars really dropped out in front of us, which is somewhat unusual. So the 4th and 5th is a little more satisfying, if you could get any satisfaction out of a 4th and 5th, because we had to fight for it. But I think the strategy was right, and as I said, a bit frustrating we weren't able to fight the front three.
Ron, thanks for your time. Indeed, all the time you've given us this weekend. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Now then, what about Kimi Räikkönen? Ron knows all about him. He did well today, as Ron agreed. It was the best of a bad job, and in fact the dice with Montoya, one of the highlights of the race. He's talking now to Peter Windsor.
Fantastic drive from where you were on the grid. Just talk us through that drive a little bit. A wonderful strategy too, obviously starting with a lot of fuel in the car.
Yeah, the car was quite good. Only, I think so was best what we could do from 11th place today, and quite happy that we got at least a couple of points.
And a passing manoeuvre as well. We didn't see many, but great racing from you.
No, it was good fun also.
Hard race too, physically?
Yeah, it's quite hard circuit, especially when it's hot like this, but it's same for everyone.
Very good result.
That was Kimi Räikkönen. Pleased to bits. OK, we've seen a couple of highlights from the race already. Let's see lots of them, all put together with some music. OK, the final shot there, a smiling, a beaming indeed, Giancarlo Fisichella. Many people say of him, if only he had a better drive, he could be a potential world champion. Or is that the sort of thing you apply to all 20 of them?
No, it's not. There are only a few drivers out there who you feel give the best they can nearly every race and consistently competitive year in, year out. And Giancarlo Fisichella definitely is one of those.
Would you rank his teammate, Takuma Sato, as potentially one of those?
He's come on leaps and bounds this year, but Eddie Irvine once pointed out, in fact it was about Jenson Button, that if you don't see an instant glimmer of something special, then possibly he's never got it. And Fisichella, as Damon's just said, has got it. Sato, I don't think does.
I wonder if Anthony Davidson's got it. He's got the kindness to come and talk to us now after what was, Anthony, a really, really disappointing end to your first ever Grand Prix.
Yeah, that's right. I'm gutted, and it was a hard race out there, but it was a shame just to lose the back end going into that corner. I just clipped the curb a bit and the back went round, but I was pretty happy with the times, and I think my fastest race lap was actually quicker than Mark, so that's pretty good, I think.
Yeah, that's Anthony, it's Damon. Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the lap times there between yourself and Mark, and I think that you showed yourself capable. I think you probably have the thought in your mind now that if you go to the next race, you might do better. But what happened in the traffic? What was it like when you were being lapped? Because you lost about 30 seconds at one point.
I tell you, that is the hardest thing that I've ever done. I mean, all my life I've been racing at the front, striving to win, and to get lapped is one thing, but for the whole chain of them to come through, it's so hard. It's so hard, harder than it looks on TV. I mean, I never dreamt it could be that difficult. They say this is the hardest place for it, but when you get on the marbles and you get letting the whole chain go past you, and you come to the next corner and you're just fighting with the marbles on the tyres, sideways, and you've got to understeer. I felt so uncomfortable being in everyone's way.
You won't thank me for telling you this, but it's a lot easier when you're in the faster cars.
Yeah, you got to learn the hard way, I guess.
No, I think you've done very well, and congratulations on your first Grand Prix anyway.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Look forward to Spa.
Anthony, just a quick question. It's Jeremy Hart here. Obviously, you're going to be racing in Spa, but at the moment, that's your last race with Minardi. Does that make it a sort of do-or-die thing for you? Have you really got to show what you're made of there, rather than, as you say, for here, just try and get to the finish, which obviously you were on target to do at one point?
Yeah, I mean, I set myself 2 goals this weekend to qualify for the race and finish the race, and I got one of them. So in Spa, I've got to get both of them.
Indeed, as they get 2 out of 2 next time, we look forward to watching you do it. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
OK then, Peter Windsor has moved elsewhere down the pit lane to speak to the man of the moment, at least before the race, Eddie Jordan, who stole all the headlines by announcing his deal with Ford for next year. He's with Giancarlo Fisichella, who won a point for him this afternoon.
An absolutely classic drive, Giancarlo. Great day to score a point. But Eddie, what did you think of that?
Sorry, I'm eating an ice cream. Am I entitled to do that? Well, we've said it before. He made a fantastic start. Qualifying makes the difference here. As we always know, Hungary is little or no passing. Great start, and got to the first pit stop. We always knew McLaren were quicker than us in the race trim at the end, but he defended everything he had to score a point in these conditions with the cars that finished. He knows it.
How was the car, Giancarlo?
It was a bit difficult, unfortunately. The setup was inconsistent, but anyway, I did my best. That was the maximum. And unfortunately, McLaren were too quick compared to us, and we lost a couple of positions. But score points is anyway good for us. And I was quick yesterday, so that was important. And I'm looking forward for the next race, which is one of my favorite circuits. And we'll have the new step engine for the qualifying.
Very, very hard race today, physically.
Yeah, very hard race physically. It was very hot, but I did not mistakes, and I feel very good. So I'm pleased about this.
Congratulations. It was just a great drive.
Well, you know, when you're defending or you're in a position like that where you know that there are 6 cars at least quicker than you, and when they finish, you've got to make sure that you try and beat them on the track. And Montoya finishing behind Taku in 11th place. You know, both Giancarlo and Taku beat Montoya today. It's a great day. The announcement, of course, this morning was a great day, and the boy got some more points. We just need to get away from the rest of the people, try and catch up Sauber. That would be nice.
Thanks very much, Eddie.
Well, they're beaming at Jordan, and they have every right to be. Let's finish where we started off then with this programme, with the news that Jordan Ford is the name of the outfit from next season. I'm interested in whether Giancarlo Fisichella and Takuma Sato will be the drivers next season, or do you reckon there are already wheels within motion to sort somebody else out?
I can't tell you. I mean, he'd be mad to get rid of Giancarlo. I mean, that, as I said earlier in the season, I think Giancarlo is the key to Eddie Jordan's future in Formula One. Without him, he really would be in a big hole.
Frentzen is floating around, as we were saying earlier on, and despite the fact that they ended with bad blood, in fact the bad blood continues in court, he's available, and Takuma Sato no longer needs, or no longer has to appease, a Japanese backer.
No, exactly as Damon says, he'd be mad to get rid of Fisichella, but that's a possibility because of all the dealings that are going on between the teams at the moment. The other 2 drivers who we've mentioned already about maybe coming to Jordan next year with this Ford deal and with all the other sponsors in place are Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Eddie Irvine is the other driver being linked to Jordan at the moment. But I think, as Damon said, I've just reiterated, I think he'd be mad to get rid of Fisichella. Sato is disposable, unfortunately, I think, at this particular juncture, especially without the Honda connection.
And BAR keep the Honda connection. In fact, they're the only ones to have the Honda connection. Is that an advantage for David Richards? Does he get the sole attention of the company and therefore improve as a result?
I think definitely it is better not to split your resources, and it's certainly a lot better not to have another team with the same engine embarrassing you. So I'd say that they're in good shape. We'll have to see. They've got another 8 months or so before we know whether they're going to make it or not.
Lads, gentlemen, thank you very much. So Rubens Barrichello is the toast of the Magyars this afternoon, leaving the rest of us to look forward to Belgium and one of the most popular circuits on the calendar, Spa-Francorchamps. Or Cham. Sky Sports 1 has a preview for that race on Thursday week at 7, and here on Channel 434 we have practice sessions 1 and 2 on Friday, 3 and 4 from 7:30 in the morning on Saturday, followed by qualifying at 11:30. Sunday has warm-up at 8, and that includes the next round of the Porsche Super Cup, and then the race builds up, starts at midday. My thanks to Damon and to Jeremy, to John Watson and Ben Edwards for the Super Channel commentary. It's less than 2 weeks now until we head to the longest, and many say best track of them all. See you in Spa.
Ross, well done. Ferrari Constructors Champions 2002. I know that means a lot to you, doesn't it?
It's very special for us because it reflects on the team, it reflects on the car. It's a championship where Ferrari are racing against BMW, Mercedes, the top car companies in the world, and we managed to win the Constructors for the last 4 years, so it's a very important thing for us.
Michael was a bit cheeky at the end and went for that fastest lap. Did that put a little bump in your heart, or do you think he could have got past Rubens?
Both drivers were obviously driving to a pace, and Michael wanted to be a little boy and have some fun, and good luck to him. No, he's a pretty professional driver. I would have been a bit upset if we'd fallen off.
And did you tell them after the second stops, that's it, no more racing?
Yes, I mean, we controlled the pace, and I think it's a difficult thing for us. It's a difficult thing for us, because we're racers at heart. But, in 98, we were in Melbourne, and we were trashed by McLaren, and we came back. We did everything we could to come back. If anyone, not criticised, but if anyone's at fault for what you saw today, it's McLaren and Williams and Mitchell. It's not us. You drive a racing car as hard as you need to, and that's what we did today. And it was a fantastic result.
Well, you've come back in amazing form. Well done.
He deserved a win here. He's a big Manchester United fan. He was shocked what happened to them in Budapest in the week. But there we are, confirmation that Ferrari have cleaned up their 12th Constructors title. Williams looking set for second place, although McLaren might just have something to say about that. And Tony, just looking at Ross Brawn, they're very, very emotional. Everybody out there goes, well, the Constructors doesn't actually matter too much. I mean, it does to people like Ross and the team.
Of course it does. It matters to Fiat, it matters to Ferrari, to hierarchy. All the big team bosses want to win the World Constructors' Championship. But what I would have said today is Rubens Barrichello, that's refreshing for everybody worldwide. See Michael Schumacher beaten fair and square. And the last time he did it fair and square was in Austria. Obviously they had to swap places at the end. But on that day, Michael Schumacher said to him afterwards, how did you do that? You were fantastic. Rubens Barrichello was fantastic today.
But Michael Schumacher perhaps making a little point at the end there, Mark, with that record lap, but for me, just really underlining their superiority here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit different maybe to Tony. I don't think it was fair and square in some respects, because I thought Michael Schumacher had the paces. He clearly showed, why would you go and stick a 16.2 in at the end? It was to tell you one thing. I'm still the boss, and I could have done it if I wanted to.
Yeah, OK, that's a very fair point. We're going to look back at quite a few of the big incidents in the race when you rejoin us. But congratulations, really, to Ferrari. I mean, Michael Schumacher, what an astonishing record he has got up there on the podium after 15 successive races. He has got champagne to spare. So Ralf Schumacher third, a 1-2 for Ferrari. Same result, different formation than last year. Raikkonen, many people's choice for driver of the day, fourth. Coulthard, a couple of points after a tough weekend. And Fisichella, his best ever result in Hungary. And that's how the Drivers' Championship look. And look at that, Ralf Schumacher and Montoya level pegging in third place. Barrichello moving up into a clear second place now. Let's have a word, shall we, Tony, first of all, about Anthony Davidson, our rookie. Was he a little bit sort of polite early on, Anthony Davidson, or what was it?
I don't think so. I think he was perhaps being a little bit cautious, not so much polite, but I mean, it is daunting going into your first race. That I think Mark might have a view on this when he was letting them go past like that.
He's been sensible, but at the same time, he's a qualified Grand Prix driver at this point. He's got every right to be on the racetrack, with all the others. A little bit too polite, but he's got some distance under him as a Formula One driver, and I think it's done him the world of good.
Because he was, and there was the little bit where he ran wide. I just wondered if he'd lost concentration there, or maybe there was a problem with the car.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll find out now, because Anthony Davidson is down there. What an engaging personality he has been throughout the weekend, and here he is chatting to Louise.
Anthony, well, you didn't quite make it to the finish, but on balance, not a bad performance. Are you pleased with the weekend?
Yeah, I'm pretty pleased. Disappointed to have sort of got in the way of Jensen, and so I ended up ruining his race, I think. I'm really sorry about that, but it's a lot harder than what it looks. To be lapped, it's unbelievably hard, and that was it. It was the first sort of wave of cars coming through, and I knew it was going to be hard, and I sort of ran out wide and tried to give him room, but kicked up dust, and he spun on the dust. So that's a bit of a shame, but apart from that, start was good fun. Lots of dust and sliding around everywhere, and it was fun to be behind Olivier. I don't know what his problem was at the beginning, but he's lost a lot of places. It was a good feeling to be in a Formula 1 race.
And you're going to be back in the car again 2 weeks in Spa. Your hopes for that weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I was able to push harder and harder in the race, and looking forward to carrying that on through to Spa.
And we're looking forward to seeing him there. Your verdict, Tony?
Well, it was a very entertaining race, but it's clear now that the competitors, Williams and McLaren, need radical solutions to get up there with Ferrari.
Mark?
Solid performance from Rubens, but my driver today, Kimi Raikkonen.
Absolutely right. OK, the ITV F1 website is your place on Wednesday lunchtime. Just to remind you, Hisao will be there. They're having a great season, aren't they, Bridgestone? And he will be your live chat Wednesday lunchtime at 1 o'clock.
Jack Villeneuve, first retirement of the race. What was the problem? You were going well.
No idea. Suddenly the engine stopped and the gears went crazy. I don't know what happened.
Just no warning at all. It just happened.
Yeah, it just happened down the straight here.
Bad luck, Jack. Thanks for talking. Eddie Irvine, you're wearing your civvies, not your race suit. Why did you stop?
Electrical problem. I had the engine cut completely after about 8-9 laps, something like that. And then it came back okay and was going really, really quick. And then the engine started misfiring a bit, and then it just cut at the first corner.
When it misfires like that, are you ever in danger of, particularly on a slippery, dusty circuit like this, of just getting offline and then taking to the barriers?
A misfire is not so bad. In the last race, I had intermittent traction control, which is a lot more of a problem because sometimes you go on the throttle and the traction control works, other times you went on, it didn't. And that's what happened to me a couple of times when I spun, but no, there was no danger going off.
Different day, different problem. Tough luck, Eddie.
Giancarlo, it was a really good start and you've converted it this time into a points finish. How are you feeling?
I feel alright. It's been a tough race physically, but I feel still good, and I am pleased for the result. Even if I was in fourth position, I was thinking about this position, but unfortunately McLaren's today were too competitive, too quick compare us, and anyway, I did my best. That was the maximum.
Where do you think you lost that fourth position then?
Just because McLaren was too quick, that's all.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Well done.
Thank you.
Nick, it's a finish, but you can't be particularly happy with that.
No, definitely not. Finished ninth, and performance of from the whole weekend wasn't really good. I struggled with the setup all the time. Same in the race. Although it was only ninth position, it was a tough race because there was a lot of hard work inside of the car.
Right, do you think there was anything that you could have changed in particular that made it easier for you to make up places here?
For sure there would be something, but unfortunately we don't know what, because we had problems from the beginning of the weekend. Managed to improve it a bit, but obviously not enough.
Okay, hard luck then, thanks.
You secured the constructors. First me. You secured the constructors title. How much fun was it?
It was very good fun. It was just a good feeling to have done everything, you know, pole position, have had a good start. So it was a fantastic feeling to finish in first place, and it's been a weekend for a good reason.
Michael said just at the end he had to steal the fastest lap because you have stolen it in Silverstone.
Yeah, you know, initially he didn't say to me. He just said, I'll put a good lap. And then, you know, after all, he said, oh, it was, you know, in Silverstone, I thought I had the fastest lap, and then you put it, so you teach me something. So, yeah, at least, you know, we learn from each other something, and I hope we never make a mistake under that circumstance, because a fastest lap is always a good number and a good thing. It doesn't give you points, but it's a good number. So, you know, he got it, and he's proud of it, and I'm feeling good for him as well.
Thank you.
Rubens, congratulations for that.
Good race. How did you find?
It was good that we got some points, and especially when we need to start so far away, and that was okay.
If we compare with yesterday, position 11, and then you did a fantastic start, can you explain from your opinion?
No, I think so. We had everything for the speed, what we did today, also yesterday, but unfortunately I got traffic and qualifying, and it was just a big mess, the whole qualifying session. And it was a shame because I think so we would have been easy thing to fight for podium.
If you can explain us a little bit the fight with Montoya you had, was it easy for you because he had a puncture, or was it difficult to overtake?
No, he didn't have puncture. When I was behind him, I got around outside in turn 2, and then I was inside in turn 3, and he just went wide because he tried to stay on the outside. But I just stayed behind him on the beginning of the race because I saw that I was quicker, but it was difficult to get past, and then I saw the opportunity and I used it.
Okay, thank you. You will do ITV? Juan Pablo, you don't want, but just a statement about the race and what happened to your car? Maybe?
No, I think I had a puncture when I was behind Johnson, and from then on just everything turned really bad.
Can you explain this was the beginning of the end then?
Yeah, in the start the car broke down in a few places, and then from then just went into a disaster.
So you had no chance against Raikkonen then?
No, with that puncture, it's very difficult.
So you had good position, you get points, and I think you'll be happy about that, right?
Yeah, it's good. It's a great result because it was the maximum, and it's been a tough race, but I feel okay, and I'm looking forward for the next one.
Was there no chance to hold position against the McLaren Mercedes?
No way at all.
Why?
Well, I don't know, maybe tires now. The Michelin was working very well with this hot condition.
So was no chance for you, not at all?
Yeah, no, but it's anyways, it's good to score some points.
Okay, thank you. Colin, congratulations, you did a good race, but at the end of the day you had no points. What a bad luck, huh?
The life is like that. So my job I did. I'm really happy about that, and I would like to score points, but maybe next time.
Can you explain a little bit from the start, from the beginning?
Yes, I did a very good start. I think I gained 2 positions in the start, and also Renault they are always overtaking the start, and I could overtake Trulli, and so I think it was a very nice race, very difficult race, but in the end I'm really happy with my job.
Okay, no chance to get in points at the end of the race?
It was difficult because when I went out of the pit, Fisichella was just a little bit in front of me, so I fight with him, but I think it was not enough time to gain his position.
Okay, thank you.
Congratulations, this was the Constructors' title. Was it kind of an easy win today?
Yeah, I'd have to say so. The start was obviously crucial. We knew we had a very fast car today. We knew the tyres were pretty good. We wanted to be careful in the first stint with the tyres. But yes, it was pretty straightforward today, I have to say.
When I saw Michael placing the fastest lap at the end, at the closing stages, I thought maybe he could win. So how was the strategy of the team today?
Well, just the whole position. I mean, you drive a racing car as hard as you need to. It's a very fragile item, and you don't drive a racing car any harder than you need to get the results. And so we controlled the pace today, and after the pit stops, the drivers were asked to hold position.
For the rest of the season, will you take it easy now?
No. We got Rubens. Rubens deserves second place, and so we're going to work very hard on that.
Thank you.
David, at the end of the day, if you compare with yesterday P10, P11, and today 4 and 5, so you should be happy, no?
I think it's a good recovery from a bad qualifying. No big surprise that our performance is quite good in race trim. Obviously the big surprise of the weekend was how poor we were in qualifying.
It's really difficult to overtake over here. We saw that again today. What should we do with this track?
Well, it's very bumpy as well, so the whole track could do with being resurfaced, but I think that, the nature of the circuit, it's got very long corners. Yeah, the hairpins before the start-finish are long, so it's very difficult to follow another car because you lose downforce.
One word for the championship runners-up?
Well, I think it's great, obviously, today that Rubens was winning for a change. He stands the best chance to be second in the championship because he is the quickest package. And obviously, Williams are still that little bit ahead of us in the overall package for the other constructors' place.
Okay, thank you.
Did you change the setup of the car?
Hey, man.
Fantastic.
us at the Hungaroring. Nelson Piquet produced the first victory here in 1986. We've seen 3 wins from Ayrton Senna, and now Rubens Barrichello is the latest Brazilian to triumph in Hungary. A 1-2 for Ferrari. That's the 5th this season. Ralf Schumacher, his first podium in Hungary. Both McLaren scoring, and that really is a result after their qualifying horrors. Fisichella, his first ever point from Budapest, as Ferrari claim their 12th Constructors' title.
Rubens, well done. 2nd win of the season. You must be delighted.
I am delighted. I think it's been a wonderful season. It is a season that I've always thought and said that it's been a good season, but you know, for one reason or the other, I could never conquer the points that I thought I could have. But it has turned up to a seriously good season with good qualifying and a good car and a good combination. I mean, I think I'm in a position that every driver dream of having a Ferrari team behind you, supporting you, so I'm just on the moon right now.
It shows how fantastic the teamwork is and sort of reliability, and because this is a title for the team, what the team is really doing, and that's something the guys can be very proud of.
It's very special for us because it reflects on the team, it reflects on the car. It's a championship where Ferrari are racing against BMW, Mercedes, the top car companies in the world, and we've managed to win the Constructors for the last 4 years, so it's a very important thing for us.
It's quite obvious that a team like us is not very happy with and satisfied with always coming 3rd. So it's now down to the team in total to change the situation. I mean, we have to. It's only 4 races to go, and it sounds more and more unrealistic, but we have to make it.
Juan basically had a bad start and a pretty bad first lap with a bump with Jensen, and then had Raikkonen behind him, and he made a mess of the chicane over there and went off and tore the aerodynamic devices off on the left-hand side of the car. And he immediately came on the radio saying he had a puncture, but he didn't have a puncture at all. He just had lost downforce, and so it was an unnecessary pit stop. And then he had problems with, obviously, lack of downforce, having damaged the car so much. So I'd say he had a pretty bad weekend altogether.
You know, everyone talks about Montoya. Undoubtedly, he is a great talent, very quick, talented racing driver, but they talk about him as if he's the heir apparent to Michael. And what I'd like to remind people is that being ballsy and defending your position is all fine and well, but if you then drive yourself off the circuit, then actually that's not being very smart. So maybe he's got big balls and a small brain.
Are you pleased with the weekend?
Yeah, I'm pretty pleased. Disappointed to have sort of got in the way of Jensen, and so I ended up ruining his race, I think. I'm really sorry about that, but it's a lot harder than what it looks.
So Hungarian winner Barrichello going 2nd in the Drivers' Championship. Ferrari's perfect season unfolding. The Williams pair neck and neck. Don't forget Ralf Schumacher won in Malaysia. Coulthard now the outsider for 2nd place, and Kimi Raikkonen, well, he was absolutely super today. Ferrari are the Constructors' champions. Williams looking odds-on for 2nd place. Both McLaren drivers in the points, and Fisichella adding just 1 to Jordan's tally. OK, Mark, let's look back at the start of this Hungarian Grand Prix. And I don't know if I was the only one, but I thought Ralf Schumacher was just a little bit polite to his big brother there.
Well, you see there's a clean start. The 2 Ferraris get off the line. Brotherly love, yeah. I think there was a lot of brotherly love there, but with Ralf giving way for Michael, because he could have really made a lot more of an effort there. The other problem as well was Trulli. The guy just didn't have any aggression there. We see from Trulli's in-car camera, there he gets a good clean start, but he doesn't have a lot of aggression going into the first corner at all. He doesn't defend his position. There you see Massa going on the outside of him. He gets a little bit of a squirrel on there. Then his teammate Button's already on the outside. And then you've got Montoya again down the inside. So he's lost 2 or 3 places already. Because of that lack of aggression, he then gets caught on turn 2. You've got Kimi Raikkonen comes right round the outside of him. That's not good.
What a weird mixture he is, isn't he, Jarno Trulli? Brilliant over 1 lap, but really dodgy in the races.
The guy's outstanding on 1 lap, 1 qualifying lap, but that doesn't make a complete race driver. And there's going to be a lot of questions, and he needs to deliver some answers.
Yeah, your man Montoya wasn't a happy fella today. Before the race, he said, you asked me what I've got troubles with. It's absolutely everything. And he had to come 2nd to Raikkonen after the damage he suffered there.
Yeah, you saw there's some carbon coming off, a lot of understeer in the car there. Kimi got up the inside of him on a corner. Controversy with Williams, Patrick Head and Sam Michael. A lot of frustration there with Montoya. I'm not too happy what's going on with him at the moment.
At the moment, Ralf Schumacher is the main man in that team, isn't he?
He's leading the way. It's took a swing again, isn't it? I mean, that's Formula One for you. You've got this guy who's strong, then all of a sudden it goes, question marks get raised. Rubens
Barrichello, he was always going to win this race today, I felt, because beforehand Michael Schumacher said, I'm not going to push him off, I'm going to keep him honest, but we always got the impression that Rubens would come through, and there was a stop, his second stop, and again, looking at it very coldly and dispassionately. If it had wanted to, perhaps Michael, if it had been any other colour car, Michael could have got past him.
Well, if it had been any other time in the season, you know, Michael's already world champion. For me, it was all a little bit too friendly. Nothing away from Rubens Barrichello, outstanding job. But, you know, Michael just looked like he was just giving way.
What do you make of Rubens Barrichello's chance of finishing second? It looks pretty good now, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, I think it's going to be. Michael will do everything he can to help him. Ferrari obviously now have gone and won the Constructors' title. The only other thing left is second for Rubens Barrichello.
And that does mean a heck of a lot to Ferrari, that Constructors' title, yet again, fourth time running.
Well, for Ferrari as a manufacturer of cars worldwide, for Fiat, you know, the parent company, for them to say they're the Constructors' champion in Formula One means a great deal.
I can't leave you without talking about Anthony Davidson, our rookie. I mean, he drove 166 laps in total here, over 409 miles. Goodness me, they worked him hard for whatever money he got.
Well, you know, I think he did a great job during the course of the weekend. A little bit disappointed when it came to the race. We see here he's being a little bit cautious and too polite. He's letting the Ferraris go by. He's a qualified Grand Prix driver now. He's on the racetrack. He deserves to be there. The problem you've got there, you back off, your tyres get full of rubber, dust, then you've got to get them back up to speed again. What can happen is something exactly like this. It gets to a situation where he runs off the road, spins off, doesn't finish the race. I'm sure he's going to be thinking twice about what happened, but still a good effort.
It'll be an easier weekend for him in a couple of weeks' time in Spa, won't it?
Certainly will. He's got one Grand Prix distance nearly under his belt, but, you know, don't take nothing away from the guy.
I think he drove the equivalent of nearly 2.5 Grand Prix here. Anyway, Mark, thank you very much indeed. So it is next stop, Spa, in a couple of weeks' time, the full service for you, qualifying live on the Saturday morning from 11:30. Big pre-race build-up from just after midday, and the highlights normal time just before midnight. As Ferrari celebrate their latest success, one man will be sleeping very soundly tonight, the workaholic Anthony Davidson. Welcome to the big league. Good night.